Welcome to All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop streaming talk show. We are here with a special show, and we have a special guest on tonight. We have an exciting show prepared for you. We're going to start off with Bruce Marks, the CEO and founder of NACA, right? They're a wonderful organization that really is pushing to have home ownership widely, right, across the country. And the work they're doing is amazing. And we're going to get into that first. Then we're going to have director Mathew Solomon and his spokesperson, Renee Johnston, on with another filmmaker, Bill Parrish. And the two films are going to be great. One's about reimagining safety, and the other is Homecoming, another film that recently won an award at the Newark Film Festival. Finally, we're going to have Dennis Boatwright come on to talk about anti-Black Arab racism and his campaign there to push back against some of the remarks and some of the really almost a campaign that was going on earlier. And we'll get far more into that later. And then finally at 8:15, we're going to have DJ Rhino in the State of Hip Hop on, and Marcus Reeves is going to be one of our guests that also comes
wait a minute. Forget
to
something.
talk about the latest in hip hop. Oh, you're right. Actually, around there is also before DJ Rhino, we are going to have a tribute to Natasha Allen, who just recently and suddenly passed away. We have a few guests that are coming on. We have Don Haynes who's coming on. We have Louise Roundtree that's coming on. And we have a few other guests that are going to be coming on at that time. So we have a packed show tonight, and we are going to just jump right into it. And Ed, I'm going to throw you the ball because you're like, hey, I've got this intro prepared. I know this is going to be a fun intro. And I know this is going to be a fun interview because we're going to be talking about, corporations, what they do, and where their weaknesses are. We're going to be having a conversation about mistresses and going to the home. It's going to be wild. It's going to be wild. So, yes, stay tuned.
We only knew Bruce for less than 30 seconds, and he was getting wild with this conversation. So we
liked it. We liked it. We were like, okay, man. I think it might be needed. But Ed.
All right. Let me just say this on Natasha Allen for everyone, just so they know. Mayor Baraka wants all of us in our community to make sure that we show up for Natasha Allen's homegoing. So just want to put that out there to the community. So once and Zaid, maybe we can post, or perhaps when Dawn and them get on, maybe we can just post, the particulars for the funeral service, so everybody know when that is, so that we can let the community know. All right, so here we go. So I just want to just lay this out, just so you know, a couple of things are going to jump out when I read this to you as you look at Bruce with Malcolm X behind him. So here we go. So we say Bruce Marks has spent more than 30 years as an activist and advocate. His objective is simple, but the path has been long and difficult. Making the cornerstone of the American dream, home ownership, a reality for everyone possible, has become a lifetime mission for Bruce Marks. That has greatly influenced an important chapter in American history. Starting with the Hotel Workers Union in Boston in 1988, Bruce Marks was responsible for historic changes in the Taft-Hartley Act that helped people live in the same area where they worked. He took on predatory lending and won in a classic David versus Goliath story.
And to add to that, the term predatory lending comes from work that Bruce Marks directly did. I didn't know that term was coined by NACA and the people who were doing that particular work.
Wow. And repeated itself numerous times, engaging in, here's the words that are going to jump out, Zaid, activism modeled after, get this, y'all, the civil rights movement, and engaging him in the label of, here we go again, nonviolent bank terrorist. It's a label, right, he wears proudly. he predicted and warned Congress in 2000 of the coming mortgage crisis long before anyone else. Now, this is important. By 2019, demand for the NACA purchase program had become so huge that necessity gave birth to another revolutionary mortgage concept, the Achieve the Dream event. Bruce Marks created a series of 30 events over 26 months using the expertise and methods developed during the Save the Dream tours to help tens of thousands of home buyers become qualified to buy a home they could genuinely
Right.
afford through a one-stop mortgage pre-authorization process that could allow thousands to become qualified in a single day.
Right. So
Here
this
we
is just amazing in terms of all the people who normally wouldn't have access to housing and homes own their own homes because of the work of the organization and the thousands of people that are volunteers and organizers. Let's just start going into this one first. Welcome to the show. Welcome to All Politics Are Local. And tell us,
Great to be on.
and you know, and when you in your introduction to yourself, tell us about how you founded the organization and the and union roots.
Sure. John, and it is great to be on. It's great to meet you when we were there in Newark. I started, I grew up outside of New York City. I have a background. I have in economics. I have a BA in economics. I worked for the Carter administration. Worked in Congress. Went to NYU to do an MBA to learn the enemy. I got a job at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York in the local domestic applications area. When you work at the Fed of New York, you're in the second district, so you deal with the largest financial institutions, not just in the country, but in the world. And everything went through that one department, domestic applications. So when banks wanted to acquire other banks, they wanted to expand their activities, they wanted to do all those things, it had to come through our department. And I learned there that every bank was doing something illegal. And that you could figure that out by looking at their stuff and and a lot of their public information. So, when I was there, I had reached out to some of the activist groups. I said, I have access to their internal documents. But these groups said, well, can you show that they engaged in racist practices? I said, well, they're not so blatant about it. Yes, they're racist, and yes, they prevent affordable home ownership, particularly for people of color and people subjected to systemic racism. But, you got to go after their vulnerabilities. And, so at that point, the groups weren't all that interested in that. I moved on from the Fed. I have volunteered with the hotel workers in Boston. Make a long story short, it is a long story. We took on the campaign to change the Taft-Hartley Act because we thought, a bit naive, that unions and management should be able to provide housing assistance. But if it's not stated in the Taft-Hartley law as a permissive subject of bargaining, it's illegal to even talk about it. So we got that done. We organized on the grassroots.
Can you tell us what the Taft-Hartley Act
Sure.
was and why that was so important to shift at that point?
Because what it did is, when I believe it was the 1930s and 40s, that's where the law that would regulate the relationship between union and management. And so it is, reasonably restrictive. And so that if, so you're able to negotiate over wages, benefits, healthcare, but you cannot actually bring up in the conversation other things that are not a permissive subject of bargaining, meaning it's written into the law. and housing assistance was not a permissive subject of bargaining. It was not written into the law. So to even bring it up was illegal. To negotiate it was illegal. So, but we did it because it was important to our membership. And back then in the 1980s, if you worked in the back of the house, which is predominantly minority and women, this is Boston, you could not even eat in the cafeteria. You had to bring in your lunch or whatever your meal and be on the stairways, and that's where you eat, because Boston and the Union was racist, obviously. So if you were white and you were from South Boston or Charlestown, you had all the rights. So you would go into a hotel and you would actually think that the hotel was overwhelmingly white, when in fact the hotel was actually, the workers were overwhelmingly people of color and women in stewarding and housekeeping and all that. So it was two different worlds. And so when the new leadership came in to the union, Dominic Bizzato, he changed that. He flipped that. But if you want to see a microcosm of the racism and the division, you would come to a monthly union meeting and it was completely divided. But what was nice is that, the new regime represented the back of the house, represented the overwhelmingly minority workforce in the hotels. So we did this campaign, and we put a clock. Once we ended up negotiating it, we put a clock on, and we said we have 18 months to change the Taft-Hartley Act. And we had to beat down the AFL-CIO, Lane Kirkland, who was head of it back then. And we took, the AFL-CIO on, and they didn't treat us well. They treated us like stepchildren. They said, everything in Washington is a zero-sum game. To get something, you have to give up something, and we're not going to support this. But we got it done, and the first President Bush signed it. But even though we had that assistance, even though we had the down payment and the closing costs, our membership could not access mortgages because of the racism. And so that's where we took on predatory lending. That's when we took on Fleet Bank. And, and remember Fleet Bank, based in Providence and mob run. And the majority of their money came from Fleet Finance, based in Georgia, and based on the predatory practices. After a 4.5-year war, we won that. And I just have to tell you, the last thing we did in this campaign, and we got arrested, and we did all the
Because when you're like, there's a campaign, you literally mean there's a campaign. There's a nonviolent war that's going to go on, because you're going to target the leaders of that bank. You are going to do all sorts of nonviolent action, including, was a mistress involved in that one?
Not in that one, but what we did, and I'm going to get to that one. What we did in that one was that the last thing we had to do, and remember, and it got violent on their side. So when we took over, one of the annual meetings, some of their goons beat up a television, they beat up a cameraman. I had there are two people that were outside of my house for the whole winter in a car with their sunglasses on. Just stationed out there. We didn't know who they were. We figured out who they were in the end. And so it was crazy. It was really intense. But the last thing we did is that they were doing an event where their head guy was speaking. And it was sponsored by the Harvard Business School, and we stole the names of all the Harvard Business School graduates, and so we infiltrated that. We shut it down, and Terry Murray was the CEO, and we shut him down. And so we all went in. There's Harvard Business School graduates. They hadn't seen so many minority Harvard School business graduates. Anyway, he settled. And we got $140 million of this one mortgage product. He settled an $8 billion in the city program. We won that. And we went on and we took on some of the big lenders. And one of them we took on was First Union. Well,
Mm.
First Union, you don't, and their CEO was Eddie Crutchfield. Well, Eddie Crutchfield, racist guy, and just an evil guy. And he was so quick to get to rich people that we called him Fast Eddie. And we never called him, First Union, because it was always FU this and FU did that, because you don't say Neighborhood Assistance Corporation of America, you always use an acronym NACA. So we felt we had to be consistent. But then we sued them because they're buying a bank. And make a long story short, we sued him. We figured out that he's having an affair with Barbara Massa. We figured that out because she was head of their corporate communications. And it's personal what these people do to their workers and to their community and the lenders. So what we did is that we did the Fast Eddie report, and we took within a 5-mile radius of every house he owned, we sent out the Fast Eddie report to his neighbors. And so the Fast Eddie report had nothing to do with his lending practices, has nothing to do with his racism. It had everything to do with gossip. Because
wow.
what do rich people need? Rich people they do, their cocktail parties, and they need gossip. So we did this, and we exposed his divorce. We did expose his affairs, because, it might sound over the top, but just take a step back and think about it and saying, their practices have a dramatic and a devastating impact on people, on home buyers, on homeowners, on people of color, and on the communities.
So what you're
You
saying
have
is
to
that,
hold them personally accountable, and that's what we do. We hold them personally accountable, like they want to hold homeowners personally accountable.
so what you're saying is it's not tough. It's really light compared to what they do. You're not actually engaging in violence. You're engaging in intelligence,
Right.
gossip, and pressure. They're actually engaging in things that hurt people for real. Like their lives are destroyed based on the stuff that they did. You get some gossip, you find out they have a mistress. That's not as big of a deal as losing your homes, losing your savings, having your lives destroyed, right? So you're like, I'll engage in this. I'll engage in this. Yeah, that was wild. Now, how did it lead from that to the stuff that you're doing now? Because right now it's like you are really focused on people being able to own their own homes, and people who normally wouldn't go through those normal channels being able to own their own homes. What's that? What is that about?
So when you look at that and you say, you're absolutely right, John, when you say that, what you have to do to hold them personally accountable. But if I can just add one thing, we have 3.5 million members. We require people to participate in whatever way that they feel comfortable. So, just like, Habitat for Humanity, to do that. So, but look who are our members. They're the ones who provide the services to the ultra wealthy. They're the ones who are the security guards. They're the ones who clean the houses and do all the food prep and everything. So, they cannot live in their gated communities. Sorry, let me get some water. Excuse me. So we can get to them, and we get to them. And often we get to them on a Sunday morning, family time, with 400, 500, 600 people going into their communities, past their security guards, who are the NACA members, into their homes to shut them down, but more importantly, to have them interact directly with the people who they're preying on, who they're impacting, because that interaction, nonviolent, is important. So what is the results? The results of this advocacy, and we're on the shoulders of the civil rights movement. People fought and died to give us the opportunity. So the result is the best mortgage in America. And how is that? So if you look at what are the criteria you need to make affordable home ownership for low and moderate income people and for people of color, the way to do this is, okay, you need, one of the roadblocks is if people work hard, it's tough to save. The NACA solution, no down payment and no closing costs. Number two, the underwriting is too restrictive based on credit score. The NACA solution, look at what people pay, focus on the last 12 months, and then only take into account those payments that they control. So, for example, someone does not control whether their medical bills, so unpaid medical bills you exclude. Number 3, unaffordable terms. NACA solution, always at a below market fixed rate. So we have the lowest fixed rates out there. Number 4, racism and biases. We will NACA qualify someone so that they become a desirable customer for real estate agents, sellers, and lenders. We've done over 75,000 mortgages over more than 20 years. We have a foreclosure rate of 0.00012, and 93% of our homeowners are people of color. So we have changed how lending gets done. And as you were at the Newark event for 5 days, we had over 25,000 people come. And virtually everybody heard about it, from family, neighbors, co-workers, from people they trust. And that's the best reflection of the organization.
Why don't we back up just for a second and tell everybody about what that Newark event was? This is out there, by word of mouth. And then I appreciate how you lifted up how the groundswell for it developed in a very grassroots way. But for the benefit of those who weren't familiar with what happened at that event, why don't you tell us about what the event was itself, Bruce?
So we have, as what you were talking about before, during the mortgage crisis, we had the Save the Dream events, and we would have 30, 40, 50,000 people come, over a 5-day period often, and to save their homes. And we ended up modifying over 500,000, over 500,000 mortgages to make them affordable. People were saving hundreds, sometimes over $1,000 a month in their mortgage payments.
You said 500,000 homes?
Yes, absolutely, households. So we saved them because people would come, because we ended up, through the advocacy of what we did, we had to go after Jamie Dimon at Chase, and we got Wells Fargo, and we got Citigroup, and we got Bank of America. We got all these different lenders to agree with us to do the modifications. And this was not done by the Obama administration, which was really disappointing. So we were on our own, but we accomplished basically the impossible. And we did that, and that was over a 5-year period. So we did that. So we've taken that same concept for the Save the Dream for homeowners, and we said, let's do these massive events for home buyers, because we have a housing crisis now. Now, in 2008 through 2012, we had a housing crisis that was a result of mortgages that were structured to fail. We now have a housing crisis because of the exorbitant rents that are being charged. And a lot of those landlords are these corporate investors, like Blackstone and Invitation Homes, who are buying up properties and renting them out at huge rents to people who could be the homeowners. So now we're doing these Achieve the Dream events, which are 5-day events. And in one day, someone can go through the whole process. They do a home buyer workshop, then they upload their information. Step 2, they meet with a NACA counselor one-on-one. Everybody's HUD certified, HUD approved. That's what the counselors are. And then they meet with a NACA underwriter to be NACA qualified, basically pre-approved for NACA's Best in America mortgage. And we're the only organization in the country that can factually say that we provide the best mortgage in America, because we are regulated in every state as a nonprofit mortgage broker. And sometimes the regulators will push back and they say, how can you say it's the best mortgage in America? We push them back and we say, do your homework. They said, you got it. And we have $20 billion of this one mortgage product, $20 billion from 15 billion from Bank of America. So we've got that. But in one day, someone can get NACA qualified with the best mortgage. And then I can talk about what we're doing with the city of Newark, Mayor Baraka.
Bruce, did you used to participate? This Donna, Hi. You used to participate in the annual legislative conference week down in DC, right?
Yes, yes.
I think you had probably one of the most attended panels there was at that time.
Yes.
You still participate in that um will you be down in September for that as well?
They have not invited us
Oh,
to be there
okay.
this year. Maybe they will.
So
We did that through, at that point, Corrine Brown, Congresswoman Brown. She was
oh, she
awesome.
was she
She
brought
was
you this.
awesome.
Okay,
And
so
and by the way, Bruce, Donna K. Williams is a former councilwoman in the city of Orange, New Jersey.
Nice. All right.
yeah,
Just by way of introduction.
Yes.
So Bruce, one
and a
of the
realtor.
and
And
a
a
real-
realtor. Yes.
and so
But
Bruce,
you're right. We were doing that back then. Yes.
Yes.
one of the things I want to get at, Bruce, with you is that, and first, yeah, you know what? Let's give you some room first to talk about what you did in Newark, and of course with Mayor Baraka, and then I'll take you into another discussion around something else. So go ahead.
Sure. So what we did is we have a partnership with Mayor Baraka in the city of Newark, and it's going to set the standard for the country because while we have the best mortgage in the country and we have reinvented mortgage lending, our home buyers are being outbid by the cash buyers, and there's not enough affordable housing. So what we're doing with the mayor is that we're doing the $1 program. So you drive around Newark or any city and you see, boy, there's these vacant houses and there's vacant lots. Well, they're owned. A lot of those lots and those homes are owned by the city. So we say, okay, instead of selling those to a developer who's likely to sit on and do nothing for a long period of time, or will increase the purchase price by 50% or more because they want their overhead and profit, let's sell those houses and those lots to a home buyer for $1. For $1. And then NACA will provide the financing to do the renovation of a vacant house or new construction. And the new construction that we're doing is these beautiful modular homes, same homes that Elon Musk and that wealthy multimillionaires are building. So we're saying we're going to do this on scale. And so for example, if you can get a 1,200 square foot house, 3 bedroom, 2 baths, really nice kitchen and living area, we're building that for about $85 a square foot. It's about $100,000. And then you add in there the foundation that you sit it on, you have to set it on, and the hookup for the utilities. You're talking about a purchase price between $120,000 and $150,000. And that's a game changer. So you're talking about a mortgage that is between $800 and $1,000. And that's what we're doing on scale. So what you're doing is you're taking the houses that have been the focus of the drugs, the gangs, the destabilizing elements, and you're making it into the foundation of stability and strength within that neighborhood. Because we all know the best crime fighters, the most effective crime fighters are homeowners. And that's what we're doing on scale. And so what we're saying to people, we're going to do this in Newark, and clearly the people of Newark, as you saw, came out in massive numbers, but so did other people around the country. So our point to other people is saying, if you want this in your city, say to your mayor and to your city council, we want to do in our city what Mayor Baraka is doing in Newark with NACA.
I thought that was awesome in terms of what we saw, Jonathan and myself, and we on purpose put ourselves through everything that our brethren and sisterin were going through in our city, waiting for 3 hours, sitting in for another 3 hours. We wanted to be able to go through that. But Bruce, I want to talk about what I think because as Jonathan and I were sitting there and we were reading through the brochure, one of the things I kept saying to Jonathan was, I think that NACA you know, and Zaid, you probably gonna jump out your seat a little bit, but I kept saying that this is Black Power to me, and I want to tell you why. Because one of the things is that in order, one you got to be a member, and then it becomes a gym a dues. Two, in order to qualify, you got to be a registered voter.
Yes.
I thought, and for me, and we had Jonathan, what was the system we had on last week? We were talking about how do we get more people to become registered voters? You muted, John.
Yes, that was Chanel McLeod from, and she has her project ready.
Right. It is
it's a great program.
it's about voting, Bruce, right? So her whole nonprofit is about how do we get more people into the voting role. And one of the things Jonathan was talking about was he wanted to talk about what was that called, John? What we wanted to get
like
voting?
I guess I've been trying to promote compulsory voting on a local level, right? Getting like I believe that if Newark, Camden, Patterson were able to institute compulsory voting, that's a game changer for the entire country because the leverage that Newark and Patterson and predominantly Black and brown areas would have would be disproportionately great, right? Like it would start to really push and change politics fundamentally. And yes, some state legislature laws have to be changed in order to give Newark that option. But if it did have that option, it would be a monumental game changer that would educate people bottom up on why voting is important, what it is, and you would see the results based on all the people who would oppose it.
Right. And so what you saw, and so Bruce, one of the things I kept tapping John on the shoulder with, and you just said, Bruce, and I made a note, you said you got 3.5 million members. Mm-hmm. And to me, that says 3.5 million voters.
Right.
And I just thought that was awesome. I thought that was and was that part of your original idea when you put this whole thing together, was to make, as they became qualified, in order to be qualified, they had to be registered voters. Was that part of the original concept?
You know, if I go back to when I started as an original concept, I was just putting one foot in front of the other and just doing one action and one thing at a time. And if you keep doing that, you keep pushing, then good things will happen. But it is fundamental to what we require. We require everybody, if they're legally able to be a registered voter, and then we require participation. And one of the most effective participations is to get at least 20 other people registered. Anywhere in the country. And then the other thing that we're doing, Ed, and it's really important, is that we are setting up what we call NACs, NACA action committees. So we take in a precinct, basically these are precinct operations, and we take the people that live within that neighborhood, within that precinct, and they meet once every 3 months or more, and they organize their neighborhoods. Because the problem with the politicians these days, and the exceptions, and it's sad that exceptions is Mayor Baraka, is that they're out of touch. They're out of touch with the neighborhoods, and that people only see them just before election day, and then they never see them again until the next election.
Right.
So we said, let's organize on a grassroots level, so everybody within that community, within that precinct, knows each other. They organize, and they can deal with the local issues, because we know that voting for judges is really important. Voting for city council is really important, and obviously for the school committee and mayors and all that on the local level.
All politics are local.
And yeah,
all politics, voting is important. Period.
But the participation. But one of the things we frustrate when you deal with the Democratic Party and the other parties and all that, they're not engaged on the local level. Right. And we say, people have to see the benefits of their vote, and they have to be engaged. And that's why we're setting up these NACs nationwide, mobilizing our 3.5 million members, and to expand to that and other people within their neighborhoods. and that's what's going to change things, and that's what we're doing. And so you're going to see the results of that in 2024. We have our PAC, our Economic Justice for All PAC, and we're going to mobilize that. So it'd be nice if it required voting, but people are going to vote because it's in their self-interest.
I think that's awesome, Bruce. Just in terms of how you you said you put one foot in front of the other. As we all know, right? Elections have consequences, right?
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things we've seen in the last 2 days,
couple of days, yeah,
right? What we've
Yeah.
seen with the Supreme Court, right? And
Absolutely.
and no one will feel that more so than African Americans in this country, right? By what just took place. And so I want to say publicly, Bruce, I commend you. I'm all politics are local. We are happy that we met you, and for sure, we're going to look forward to trying to figure out a way that we can partner with you, because that's our goal too, right? Here at All Politics Are Local, we want to get as many people engaged as possible. I love the concept. I love the concept around organizing, right? People locally, because we believe in that too. Being able to have people who can organize and talk about the issues. Zaid and I had a big meeting yesterday. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the National Black Political Convention that happened in 1972 with Mayor Baraka's father, Minnie Baraka, right? But of course, we're doing a 51st anniversary that I think we would love to have NACA involved in, because I think what you're doing is real revolutionary, and that's going to take place in October. But around that, because it is about political organizing, it is about political power, it is about being able to see the results of that, because I think that the fight that is going to happen based around what happened in this last week is going to be enormous, because some of the changes that these people are making, they're making them legally, right? And so we've got to begin to get organized and understand what that means. So Bruce, I want to just say thank you to you. And Don, I'm gonna let you have the last question.
Oh, I have one question, Bruce. Do y'all have an office space in our area? And I have one question that we asked all our guests.
We don't right now, but we
Okay.
will if you want us. And just what you're saying is that we're not reinventing something that hasn't happened before. I mean, what the Black Panthers did, and the services and the meals that they give out, and the advocacy, that was really important. And if you go back to the civil rights era, and Reconstruction all the way back, it's really learning and being on that legacy and just building on that. And that's getting back to the basics. And we hope that we're going to do that, and what you're doing is awesome, and we got to get other people to do the same thing, getting back to the basics, the grassroots organizing, engaging people, and providing services for people so that they recognize, boy, they're out there, and I'm going to vote to expand what's going on, and other people can build on that. So we appreciate the time, and
And I have one more question that we asked all of our guests.
Sure.
This is a hip hop political show, and you spent most of your time talking about what you're doing from a fair housing standpoint. But we want to know, what hip hop artist, individual, or group do you listen to when you're out there doing this work, writing up policies? Is there a hip hop artist that you listen to, or group?
Give it bankers hell.
Don't put me in that position. I'll have to think about that. But look, I'm not. I just I work too hard and too long, and I should expand. I should expand my horizons.
So if I was,
Hey, Bruce, fight the power.
okay, well, what background music is it? What music do well, tell us who it has to be something, you're writing.
Yeah. I'll be going to the Bruce Springsteen concert, and
Jersey Boy.
That's right.
Yes.
to do that. I love that. And if I can just add, for one thing, people, even though we talk about the events, go to our website at NACA.com, and participate. So if you want to be a homeowner, go to our website and go to the next workshop. Also, what we talked about, Ed and John, is that we're hiring. So we're hiring, people to be counselors. We're hiring researchers. We're hiring people because even though people are being laid off in the lending industry, even though bank lenders are going out of business, we're growing. So we created that foundation. So please go to our website also and apply for a job at NACA, because we'll train people, but you got to have the fire in your belly for economic justice to work at NACA. But
And Bruce, I don't know if you know the name Linda Lloyd, but I know Linda, she's one of our community persons in Newark. And as she was going through the program, she walked through, and she became a first-time homeowner. She's a realtor now, but she took us through the whole process as she went through NACA. So, and it was really helpful, that she was just showing people how the program works.
Instructive, I think, is the word you want to use.
Yeah,
Now.
and that's the idea that the people that go through, they're the best spokespeople to really help people navigate this process. Absolutely.
So
Thank
John,
you, John.
can you put www.naca.com in so we can put that out, so we can let people know, as Bruce just said, to go to the website, and if they're looking, he want them to definitely go there and apply for employment. So we want to put that out there as often as we can for Bruce. We thank you, man. We're absolutely grateful. It was our pleasure meeting you, and we will definitely look to partner with you in any way we can. I love all of the words you used tonight, grassroots. I love the words organizing. All the words you use are the words that we are very familiar with in our culture and that we've heard, and civil rights and all of that. And I think that what you're doing, in my mind, is very Black power. Thank you.
It is great to be on. Look, I have the best job in this country, and the word is out there. So we just got to keep building and building. But thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity, and look forward to working with you.
Please, if you feel as though something's big is coming out, or you need to get the word out through many platforms, please reach out to us, and you have this platform to get that information out.
Yep. Absolutely. Thank you, everybody.
Especially with many of those things that you're going to be doing, we're going to try to send you some people who I think you'd be interested in, who've done a lot of good work in Newark. So look forward to seeing what you do. Look forward to a lot. So thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, thank you very much.
All right.
Really appreciate it.
Good night.
Okay, good night.
So that was All Politics Are Local.
You see, Professor. You see, next time.
let me tell y'all something. Do you know what? I've never heard people who were not registered to vote said that they were running out of that meeting, John. And there were thousands of people in this meeting. I've never heard Black folks say, "Oh, I'm running out to get registered to vote right now."
Oh, you were hearing that in the meeting. Everyone was going, because there were like 25,000 people who were there.
It was awesome. Right? I've never heard.
And they were there over that 5-day period.
Yeah, and actually, at the ALC, they're most attended, and most people you couldn't even get into the rooms.
Yeah. I mean, well, as I said, me and Jonathan went through the whole process. I think we waited for like 6 hours, didn't we, John?
Yeah, I mean, like
we waited for 3 days to get in,
and then we waited. And then the
was actually going to
process.
come.
I mean, it was good though. Like it was really a community event, really, because I actually ran into former students there.
Beautiful.
I ran into, and it was really like, because I mean, you're talking about a revolutionary
growing up stuff right there.
And so it was really like the whole community was out. It was actually really good spirited. People who were working were really good. And then when we got in the session, it was long, but they gave out a lot of necessary information about the program. So, and that's part of actually the HUD requirements as well. So there were a lot of things working at the same time.
And who were the participants that were there? Anybody from 18 to 80?
Everybody, right?
Everybody.
Like the whole community was out there. There were Black people, there were Latinos, there were like young people, there were old people. I mean, it was the whole community was out, right? So so that was a really good event. I mean, it was really like it did have a throwback feel to it, because even though you were waiting in line, there were some people who would get impatient, and then when other people talk to him, like, "Look, sister, right? Like, well, we this is what we do. I mean, we have to be patient, right? This is a process."
Right.
And so we saw a lot of those conversations going on. There was a pregnant woman who was, clearly pregnant, and some people grabbed her chair so she could sit down. There was, I mean, there was a lot of goodwill
Right.
throughout the
Community.
entire thing as well. So I definitely appreciated that.
What I thought was, and I know we got to go to our next guest.
Right,
but
we're running a little late. We're running a little late.
So
It's not Dallas' fault, it's mine, and yours, Ed. It's you and me, Ed. It's your fault, my fault. We're late.
Yeah.
We cannot blame Donna this week.
I think what we want
I'm gonna. You blame me on the other end.
Okay. You're like, don't worry, I'm gonna hold it up.
well, if y'all let me say this, we can move on.
Okay.
So
Right.
what I'm trying to say is that all of the words, all the things that we try desperately to get people to do, to be committed and be organized and stand up for issues, all of those things that he's done, and the number that jumps out at me is that 3.5 million, right, registered voters. That's power,
Right.
right? That is power. That is exactly what America Barack
Understanding its stakes.
in 1972.
Right? Yeah.
And then when he talks about it is a requirement for each member, right, to register an additional 20 members. Think about that, y'all. 3.5 million.
That's one of their volunteer commitments. They have a lot of ways to volunteer. Like, I'm sure that if we become more involved, then this will be a way that we volunteered for the program as well. They have lots of different commitments. One of them is to register 20 voters, which is great, right? But we do have another segment. We're going to come back. I know that we're going to be talking about NACA again and stuff that they're doing in Newark, because it really is so deeply oriented in what we did, and that event is going to be transformative for years. It's going to be a transformative event. So let's talk about our next guest. And Donna,
Yes.
you can introduce our next segment, and because I know that you have you have been on the organizer part of this, and we have it's very cool, actually very important documentaries and films that are already out and that are traveling the independent circuits. Zahi was talking about one of those films actually on his own. He was like, "Oh, I heard of that film. It's really important." So I know he's going to be very interested in the conversation as well.
Well, as we know, Brother Zaid is one of many things he does is he's into the arts. He's an actor, and this is film season. People are doing in the summertime the different film seasons. I think the Newark Film Fest, it may be still going on. It just wrapped up, and that's where Mr. Parrish.
July.
I didn't hear you.
The Newark Black Film Festival starts in July.
The Newark Film Fest, I think there's two. Yeah. And so, and Mr. Parrish, oh, there he goes. There's the man with many names. There's F. William Samuel, aka Bill Parrish,
Yes.
who participated in the Newark Film Fest and won with his movie Homecoming. And then we have Mathew and Renee, and I believe they will be showing their film in Montclair at a film fest at the Unitarian Church in Montclair. But these film fests, they're done. I don't know if it's like through a grassroots where you get to bring your work of art to the festival, allow audience to see them, and you have a panel. Normal is they have a panel, they discuss the film, you get feedback, and in most cases there's a reward and recognition. And again, with in Mr. Parrish's case, he won. So let's get started. Bill, so were you in Newark? What film festival you're in? Can't hear you, Bill.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Is that better? Thank you.
Yes.
thank you again, Donna, and thank you to All Politics is Local. I really appreciate the opportunity to come on and talk. This was the Newark International Film Festival, which is a big film festival. They were in their 8th year, but I think you mentioned earlier the Newark Black Film Festival, which is in year 49 in July.
Yeah.
So they have a certainly longer history culturally in Newark. And, for this thing, it's about submissions, right? We make these independent films and we want to get them out there and impact people. And the first opportunity is the festival season. You submit your films to these festivals. You have to wait to see if they select you. I can tell you in the case of Newark International Film Festival, they said they had over 2,000 films from, I think, 40 different countries. So when we do get some industry recognition like we did, our film won Best Documentary, and it's a short. It's actually a docu-series, 5 parts, about 25 minutes each. We only screened episode 1 and episode 4. And this film is called Homecoming Ready, a film by F. William Samuel. Donald mentioned I had a couple of names. People call me Bill because that's short for William. But if you didn't know, I'm also a stand-up comedian and an artist. And I go by the name F. William Samuel. William Samuel is my middle name. F means funny. And William is my first name. So that's how you get it, my pseudonym. But yeah, I'm glad to talk in detail about the film, Don. I don't know if I should just run away with it or if you got some questions for me or what have you. But we're very
No,
pleased.
I will say earlier, if we remember, the classic came back to the Meadowlands, and Bill was very instrumental in bringing and making sure that happened. And if anybody's been to the classic down at the Meadowlands, it was something, and in HBCU history, it's just like Thanksgiving. It's something that you do. So to see it come back this year, Bill's he's a graduate of Hampton, and homecoming is something. But all colleges do it, and I don't know to what extent, but I know in the HBCU colleges, homecoming is a very big event. It's an event that has a lot of different programs that, introducing students, and then there's the recreational part of where the networking and partying and so on and so forth. But let's talk about it, Bill. We did put the trailer out, and the trailer's in the private chat, and we'll also put it on the page. But just tell us, basically a little bit about it.
So thank you for the opportunity again. I think it's extremely poignant that we are talking now after the Supreme Court's decision to strike down the use of race in college admissions, which I think is ridiculous. They had already rolled back affirmative action, and with this blow, it makes it even worse. But the Black college space is a space that we own, and we need to support. Historically, Black colleges and universities have been around for a long time. Unfortunately, they were opportunities for folks to go to school when they weren't allowed to go to other institutions. And, just a couple of years ago, people were asking, are HBCUs still relevant? Like, you can go to school anywhere. And here we have this. One thing that we focus on at these schools is high academic achievement, right? We party, but the high academic achievement and the cultural identity is very, very important. I like to use the example of some of the things you've heard in the news. We may have our differences in the Black community, but never did I go to my dorm and have somebody hang a bunch of bananas in front of my dorm or any kind of racial tension or strife like that. So this film celebrates this union. I graduated from Hampton in 1989, and I've gone to homecoming every year except 2. I missed 2 in about 35 years. And I thought that was unique. I thought it was odd. And then as I started to talk to more of my friends, I realized that they don't miss homecoming either. So I started to explore, what is it about these 3 days? Because it's only, Friday to Sunday. What is it about this period, this bonding period, that makes us come back, makes us feel the need to come back and have so much excitement around it? And I wanted to explore that. Homecoming at an HBCU is kind of like a family reunion, a church revival, a day party, fashion show. It's kind of like everything mixed together. And we prepare extensively. I'm always taken back by the number of people who don't go to the football game. I actually played football for Hampton in 1985. And I said, let me see if I can contrast how the football team gets ready for this big game with how alumni, students, and staff get ready, because they see it as just as important. They're not playing the game. They're very serious about it. And the game is almost a backdrop. It's like a bonus. Like people, it's just, oh, okay, did we win? But it's a true immersive 3, 4, sometimes 5-day weekend that people don't want to miss, and they go to great lengths. So that's really what the film is about, exploring the relationships and why people feel the need, and then some story behind who the people are and how they got to these places. So I'm very excited about it.
And one of the things you didn't mention, you get to meet. You said you've been going back over 30 years, and I'm not sure what was your major when you went.
My major was building construction technology. I still run a construction management firm for the last 22 years on my own after leaving Newark Public Schools as a director of design and construction. So I've been an entrepreneur for a while, and I think that's what allowed me to follow another passion of mine in terms of storytelling on the big screen.
But there is a big opportunity to network with the freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior as they're getting ready to walk down the aisle and get ready to go out into the world and just see, and start living in their life. And so it's, that relationship is a big thing. So it's awesome that you get to do that, and going back to every 39 years, and people do it. I went to shore, so we do it. And I brought two films together. Matthew's film, and Renee is the spokesperson, is called Reimagining, and it's talking about reimagining. I'm gonna let you do it, Renee. Go ahead.
And I don't want to take too much credit because I'm not really Matthew's spokesperson, but
okay.
I found him, funny enough. He was doing an interview on Leftist Mafia, and so I started stalking him, honestly, because I wanted to watch the movie.
Leftist Mafia, I want to hear some of that. Wait a minute, what is that?
Leftist Mafia is it's one of the YouTube shows. I think it's Thursday evenings. I don't remember what time, but Ole Olerin, who is a half Bahamian, half Nigerian public defender who lives in Brooklyn, is one of the hosts on the show. And they brought Mathew on to discuss this documentary. And I was so obsessed with wanting to watch it that I started to pay attention to when the documentary was going to show. So I tracked Mathew down on Twitter, of all places, and I asked him if he would be willing to allow me to screen the documentary, because to me, part of my what I really want to invest my time in is helping people to understand the things that will change their material conditions in life. And I feel like part of the reason people don't talk about abolition is because they don't understand what abolition is. The first question is always well, what are we going to do without cops? What about crime? What about safety? People don't understand that the research shows that what people think police do and what police actually do are two different things. And so my goal was really to try and regarding what the abolitionist movement is really about, what it means to change your impression of safety, to change your impression of what cops do. And that's, in my opinion, what the film does. So I got Mathew to agree to a screening, and I got lucky because he has family in New Jersey. So he's going to fly across the country to participate in a panel. I got Ole Olerin to also participate. He's bringing with him Alex Vital, who wrote the book, The End of Policing. So we have a really good panel pulled together.
Let me stop you just for a second. Once we get the phase that scares the hell out of a whole lot of folks, defund the police. I've been in Newark. He's actually studying our community-based violence ecosystem, and is going to do a major article on what we're doing in Newark around this whole thing that you're talking about. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Awesome.
And
No,
no,
I'm glad to hear
You
it.
to know who he is.
and Renee, and Matthew, you don't have to be quiet. Jump in there when you want to, Matthew. But I don't want to gloss
This your
over
film,
it.
isn't that right, Matthew?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
I don't.
Renee's doing great so far. So
So
I'm
I don't want to even gloss over it. Bill mentioned that he's never went back to his dorm while he was at Hampton and found bananas hanging. And if you ever seen films that kind of highlight college campuses, and particularly college campuses, there's always an interaction with the students and the police. And we are taught that our police are they are here to protect and serve. But it the last couple of, well, forever, it doesn't seem like it has always been that type of situation. So what is reimagining safety?
Matthew, you should take this one.
yeah. Thank you. And yeah, thank you all for having me.
Go ahead,
Yeah. And Bill, congratulations on your festival win. It's not only difficult getting films into festivals, but documentaries are a whole other thing. So
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Congratulations on your completion as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, reimagining safety. It's, I mean, basically, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. I just turned 50, so born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, went to college in the 90s, and I had what I discovered was a very unique experience of going to very integrated, diverse schools. And so at an early age, I saw, and my friends shared with me how their experiences with police, with the public, shopping in stores and the malls were very different from mine. And so by the time I got into college, and I was a music major, I was actually a jazz guitar major at USC. I was also taking sociology classes because I've always been very fascinated with how societies are constructed and how people interact with each other. And we were learning about systemic racism. And the professor in the class said, this one thing that the laws and rules in a society are created by the people in power to keep them in power.
That's right.
And to me, it was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. And then the Rodney King beating happened. Those officers were acquitted. The LA riots happened. The O.J. Simpson trial. There was the Rampart scandal where a bunch of LAPD officers were, brought up on charges for abuse, and they were part of like the gang unit. And so I was seeing all of this stuff play out. I went into music. I started writing and directing films. I, along the way, started doing conflict resolution because I was always interested in communication and relationships and partnership and things like that. And so I started doing conflict resolution and then studying anti-racism and taking courses and being in programs like that. And then the pandemic started, and then we couldn't go anywhere. And so I actually went back to school during the pandemic. I wanted to get a master's degree in public administration so I could better use my privilege and my access to work towards social change. And I thought I was done with film, and I thought I'm going to get into politics or government or policy or something. And through the course of the master's program, which is post George Floyd, I was applying the concepts of public administration like sustainability, policy making, government, transformative leadership, applying all of that to the issues with policing and incarceration that were playing out, in real time. And so when it came time to do my final thesis project, one of my academic advisors was like, we know you can write a paper, but we also know that you're a filmmaker. Why don't you make a documentary? And, she was like, it could be like, 5-10 minutes, doesn't have to be a big thing. And I'm like, I can't do this documentary in 5 to 10 minutes. And I'm a filmmaker, so it's going to be a movie. It's not going to be, a little video about something. And I said, it's going to be a lot of work. And she said, well, go ahead and do that anyway. And so I, found the 10 people that are in the film. I wanted to get a cross section of different points of view that could illustrate these are the problems, this is why the problems persist, and here are the alternatives, because we don't really get to the alternatives. And like it was said a minute ago, the defund the police conversation is so scary to a lot of people, but we've never really had a conversation publicly in a big way about what that means. And so with this film, I really wanted to lay that all out on the table and open up the possibility for conversation and understanding, and ways that the movement could use this as as a tool and a resource, and then to affect positive change. And so that, in a nutshell, is where the film came from and what it's about.
As
Let me
as
just
the
jump
rest,
in- let me just jump in for
go
a
ahead.
minute, because I want to say something to all of you. But one of the functions that I am developing for one of my organizations, and this is my New York organization, the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, is the actual development of a community-based film festival, something different from the celebrity-driven, big posh, a whole lot of all the fanfare. I ain't interested in none of that. I'm interested in using film to supplement community organizing, right? So I will definitely be there on the 12th. That film, from looking at the trailer, right? And I got some other. If you went through a part 2 and part 3, I got a whole lot of folks you can interview. But that film has a particular role in helping develop and have those conversations.
Yeah.
Right? Because the folks got lost in the rhetoric and how the media spun the rhetoric, right? But the conversation is I mean, at the base of it is a reallocation of resources to where people's human needs really are.
Right.
That's the basis of the whole conversation, right? And in Newark, what we've done with just 5% from the Newark police budget, we built an ecosystem, a community-based violence ecosystem, intervention ecosystem that took violent crime down in Newark, big bad shoot 'em up Newark, down to a 60% low in less than 5 years.
Wow.
Right? And so that's the conversation that people need to have, right? We did it with less police.
Yeah.
And putting money where we need it. And that's just 5%. So I mean, so it's a hugely important conversation. And so, I'm thinking about down the road stuff and what I know I could do with a film like that. Right?
Yeah.
That will help promote those conversations. So salute to both of you.
Can I offer one thing?
On that other film, that film represents tradition, right? Brother Samuel's film represents tradition. Tradition is also important in stabilizing communities, right? And so that's another conversation. The last thing our community needs to do is walking away from the institutions that have historically stabilized us.
And if I can make a point, Saeed, to follow up with what you said, tradition. Part of the reason why I made this film, it's a feel-good film, no doubt about it. You're going to come away, you're going to feel good. But, storytellers always like to tuck a little thing in there that makes you think or wonder or makes you uncomfortable. And the question is, this institution belongs to us, but whose job is it to pay for it? Think about that for a minute. And I liken it to the Black church. Everyone in the Black community feels at home in the Black church. But when you start asking people to tithe and pay, things change. And we've had our issues with what happens with the money, et cetera, et cetera. But for the most part, if nobody thinks it's their obligation to pay for it, how can it exist as a tradition? So in Homecoming Ready, I go through on the front end with all the steps we take to get ready, the money we spend in hotels and food and clothes and liquor and entertainment, right? And then by episode 3, 4, 5, I start to present you with, but the university doesn't get any of that money for the most part, right? It's our job, our obligation to fund our institutes, and you see what's happening with the Supreme Court. So I'll give you an example. HBCU alumni giving rates. I think a couple of years ago, I think 2019, Claflin College in South Carolina had one of the highest alumni giving rate, and it was only 31%. 31% of the people graduate give, and it's, they don't make it like, do you give 1,000 or more? It's just if you give. At Hampton University, and I'm very proud of Hampton University and all the professionals we placed, our giving rate is inching close to 18%. It's inching close to 18%. And that's kind of pathetic, right? Mm-hmm. So several years ago, and I mentioned this thing about getting ready for the weekend, but nobody goes to the game. The university was forced to charge admission to the tailgate because people wouldn't pay the $25 to go watch the football game. And people were stark raving mad. Oh my God, I'm frying turkey. I'm frying fish. You mean to tell me I got to pay you for that? And they lost their minds. They did not want to pay for the tailgate, but it was a desperation move by the school because people weren't going to the game. So my question is, if you love it so much, and it is a cultural tradition, whose job is it to pay for it?
That's right. That's a serious question.
And as you leave that question, Matthew, you had a question, Matthew, a statement or question.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks. I just Zaid, you were talking about the opportunity with the film to create conversation, and I love that, and that's one of my goals with this film has been to do that. And so we're fortunate that we were in Memphis with Decarcerate Memphis and Black Lives Matter Memphis, and we had.
I've had them on the show. They're great folks, young folks.
And Renee, you spoke of the gentleman from Brooklyn that does something on YouTube.
It's she's actually a woman.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Ole. Her name is Ole. She's a public defender, but she's also she became very popular as like a political commentator. People just started to notice what she was saying.
Okay, and I asked that because through an arts program in New York, didn't they bring a panel of police and they would at a museum and they would sit down with community members and they would start it was like
in Brownsville they did that, and they do it's like a 5-day program where they bring people in, and it's supposed to be community policing, but if you really look under the cover you find out that it's all like retired officers. They're being paid by NYPD, but they're standing there alongside of people who are actually from the community, who are doing community action, trying to improve the community. And in my opinion, it's devious, because if you live in Brownsville and you see these people standing alongside of your neighbors who are doing things that are positive within the community, you might mistake this program is actually being run by the community when it's actually being funded and run by the NYPD. So it's a tricky situation. And I don't know if everybody's aware, but a young man got beat up in Brownsville just a few days ago because he missed the garbage can when he was throwing his wrapper out, and the police jumped out the car and it turned into a whole thing. So, part of the conversation that needs to be had is really understanding that sometimes these situations and these, opportunities for real discourse about what police do, right? Like that idea that police are there to serve and protect, that's real, it depends on where you live, if that's really what they're there to do. And if that plays into it, then that's not really their job. If that's not what all police officers are doing, then that's not actually the job.
One thing, when you see Jonathan show up, it's like you're at a award show and they start playing the music, and you know how the music goes. You good? I can't hear you.
Not even. We don't.
Okay, I just wanted to say, because sometimes the music starts playing real faint. Okay.
No, I mean, you're just feeling guilty. That's all. You're just feeling guilty, Donna. You're just feeling guilty. No,
Okay.
actually, all I wanted to do was say that we have a former high school student, recent high school graduate, who helps us with the show behind the scenes, and she was like, "You have William Samuel on?" And I was like, "Yes, we have William Samuel on." And he was like, I'm part of his scholarship program. So at some point, Masoma's awesome. And she'll jump on and just say hi or ask.
Give you a
Just
shout out.
cool.
Give you a shout out.
Absolutely.
I've been in this work for a while, and like I said, I've just been in this space. I actually created a nonprofit called HBCU Greatness because I really wanted to make an impact, not just for the students who are going to Hampton that I so love, but all of those students. I've been the president of the Hampton Alumni Chapter for the North Jersey area for the last 3 years. And whenever I ask a parent where's their student going to school, they say whoever gives us the most money. And that's a bad situation to be in. I understand the economics of it, but just because University of New Haven may give your child more money because they need diversity, it doesn't mean that's the best place for your child. It's almost like you're selling them to the highest bidder. So for kids who really want to go to these schools, it's a courageous decision to sit in your house and say, I know we got to find another $20,000 when someone is saying you can go to Keene for free. So to really buckle down and work hard to say, no, I want to be here takes a lot of courage, and we want to support those kids.
And also, going back to the topic with the two films and the policing and many times our young people, some of their first constant interaction with police when they're not with their parents is when they're on campuses.
Mm-hmm.
And there has been many movies. I think there was one in my mind that's most intense was the one
John Singleton at Higher Learning.
Yes.
John Singleton at
Higher Learning.
He
And
depicted
how
that beautifully.
Yes, and how that John
He
Singleton
deserves
was
to send stuff
just
contribute on his own. That's a whole nother conversation, that brother.
so ahead of himself. But that situation and that officer, it's because in most cases, when you're on a campus, I can remember being down at Shaw and running into if anybody know in Orange, it was a Judge Pohill.
Mm-hmm.
One of his sisters was down there. As soon as I heard the name Pohill, standing straight up after that, and
watching your behind.
But I can't think. She was a professor at Mary McLeod Bethel, president, and she talks about how it's almost like she, as a president, she took on of having X amount of children because they were away from their parents, but you don't often hear, and I'm sure there are police out there who feel that way, one or two, but like you just said, Renee, it should be everybody that these students should feel comfortable when they are interacting with these police officers and there's a situation and they're walking on campus and not because of who they know or what they know, how they look and things like that. And it could be very scary.
Let me tell you something. My work around police brutality, quiet as it's kept, we talking about campus, you're talking about the campus context, started when I was an undergrad at Rutgers, Newark, with the Black Organization of Students back in the 70s, right? So it's been a long walk for me, right? And how did that play out? At the time, Central High School was right across the street from us next to NJIT.
Right.
And police would harass our kids just walking across the street, going back and forth to school because they didn't look like what students look like, and we had to, turn the volume up on that. And I have been giving police hell ever since. So who are they protecting and serving? See,
right.
Let me ask an organizing question on the Montclair front. There's one of the co-sponsors. God, I can't. There's a co-sponsor that I had been looking for. I run a statewide coalition against police brutality here in New Jersey, right? And we're looking to grow that because we're pushing for some strong police accountability legislation over the next year or so. And there's I can't remember the name of one of the co-sponsors, but Renee, hopefully you can help me with that because I would love to get in contact with him. And like I said, I'm going to come on the 12th. Montclair, what is the name?
Is it the Montclair Is that it?
Say it
Montclair
again.
Beyond Policing?
That's it.
Montclair
That's
Beyond Policing.
That's them. Yeah.
That's Greg Parso, who I actually just linked up with, and I apologize. We got started a little late, and we're headed to dinner, so pardon me with the movement and everything.
That's all right. That's all right.
So, I actually.
Did she freeze?
He did freeze.
Yeah,
She did freeze.
She should be able to go in.
And Matthew, have you have you ever been a part of the Martha?
Sorry, do you all have me?
Okay,
Sorry,
go ahead. I'll ask you, Matthew. Go ahead.
I'm a Green Party member, and the Green Party of Union County has been very, very supportive. And they introduced me to Greg, actually, who is one of the main organizers for Montclair Beyond Policing. So Zahi, I can send you his email immediately as soon as we get off of this.
And like I said, I'll be there.
I know how to get it to you.
Now,
I can
having
send it to
said
you.
that, the flyer that I saw for the 12th said details are forthcoming. So all those details ready? Venue, registration?
All those details are ready. The venue was ready. What I was afraid of was posting the venue without posting how people can get tickets.
Okay.
And I didn't want people calling the venue. So it's going to be at the UU of Montclair on Church Street. I think it's 67 Church Street. So it'll be there. We're going to use Fletcher Hall. The tickets are going to be free. I'm actually going to do a fundraising venture so that people don't. It is that important to me to have people participate in this conversation that I do not want to charge people for tickets. So I'm going to go about fundraising via these organizations and via friends and family and whoever wants to give. My Global Pan-African Movement members are in full support, so they're going to be my fiscal agent for this. They're going to allow me. Oh, absolutely. They're going to, the fundraising will go through them, although they're not keeping any of the money. It's a nonprofit venture. So the money is going to go to pay for the venue, to pay for expenses, to, help Mathew because he's flying across the country to come and participate. But it will be on the 12th. Doors are going to open at 6:30. Tickets are going to be free. The ticket link is already available and will be opened up as soon as I get off of this call right here. So I'll be able to send it out.
So Matthew, what I was asking, at one time I went to the Martha's Vineyard Film Fest, and Bill, I don't know if you remember this. There was a woman who did a film, and her son was sitting in the car playing music, and a gentleman got out because the music was too loud, and it resulted in her son being killed as a result.
I think that was Jordan Davis.
Yes, Jordan.
That's right. And
right.
His mother ran for Congress and won.
Right, but she did the film, and I had the opportunity to see it. So make sure you get out there and network. And so in closing, we have to respect your time, everybody's time, because we know that you guys are going to be here for 30 minutes. You're welcome to stay, but Bill, I'm going to start with you. This is a hip hop political show. So we like to ask all of our guests that come on, what hip hop artist, individual or group are you listening to when you're out there doing the work that you want to bring to your films and the community?
I'm from the golden age of hip hop. Donna, EPMD, Redman, Keith Murray. Those are my favorites. Of course, Black Star, Talib Kweli, Mos Def, Common. I'm down with the Backpackers. I'm down with all of that. So I love hip hop and any of that stuff, from Nas to Wu-Tang to Slum Village out of Detroit. I'm listening to it all. I'm not so big on the new stuff, but from 88 to 98, I'm all the way in there.
So last week at the award, you were spinning on your head with the Sugar Hill Gang and everything.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. And even our Congress, our city councilman in Newark, Do It All Kelly.
That's all. Do It
from
All.
North to the Underground.
Right.
I go back and he went to Shaw too, if I'm correct.
Yes, right. Yes, sure. Yes, he did.
So I'm down with all of that.
Okay.
Charlotte, by the way, is the land of the great Ella Baker and the launch of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, SNCC. Huge,
Absolutely.
important
Absolutely.
And
contribution.
we had Stokely Carmichael come on
Kwame
campus. So,
Ture,
yeah.
his
Yep.
birthday was yesterday,
Yes, it
Nice.
was.
right?
Okay.
We don't talk about Pan Africans, let's get it right.
Yes, sir. Renee, the same question.
So, Bill stole my thunder because I'm a 90s baby. So I listen to all the same stuff. Although I'm from Brooklyn, so I gotta pull in Biggie. Can't help it. Have to. No choice in that. That's my, my era was really mostly R&B. I did listen to a little bit of hip hop, a little bit of rap. I don't listen to any of the music that's current. So all the new folks, I have no idea who they are. My students make fun of me. But I'm
Show
all
Ken-
about the old school stuff.
show Kendrick Lamar some love. And Matthew, the question.
Yeah, same question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, my go-to is Public Enemy Takes a Nation of Millions, and I actually edited some of my documentary too. I didn't use the music in the film, but I edited a lot to that. Eric B. and Rakim, I was 1580 KDAY K-Day in LA was what I grew up listening to. So all of that.
Okay, so I hope one of the
Are you in
things
touch
that
with Merlina Abdullah from BLM Grassroots?
Yeah, what's that?
Are you in touch with Merlina Abdullah and BLM Grassroots
Oh, yeah.
in Los Angeles?
Mhm.
The force. She's a good friend and comrade.
So I know Bill has to go, but one of the things we always
Yes.
hope that people also use our platform to network, and I hope to see both of y'all out in what's that film fest out in France? The Cannes, and also I'm a big fan of the Martha's Vineyard. So get around and network and reach out to each other to support and then getting those, because that's those submissions. And I think there's another film fest in Newark in September, right? The first week of September.
July.
The film festival that he was talking about is the Newark International Film Festival.
Yeah.
That's in the fall. The Newark Black Film Festival is in July in the summer.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
so they did
those-
it. So he switched it around. Okay.
Those selections are still coming out. We actually waiting Martha's Vineyard Film Festival selection. African American Film Festival doesn't come out until July 15th, and the festival is August 4th to the 12th. So you know how hard it is to get to the vineyard, Don.
Yes.
So if we get selected, I might need some lodging or last minute
Yeah,
accommodations.
we're gonna sleep on a beach.
But thank you all. I'm sorry I have to run. I really appreciate the platform and the opportunity. Very nice to meet you, Mathew and Renee, and your film looks amazing. So I look forward to seeing it as well.
Okay.
Thank you,
Always
Jonathan,
remember,
Zahid, and Donna. I really do appreciate the opportunity.
and the door is always open. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And Matthew, when did you get in town?
I'm in town July 11th through the 13th, and our screening is on July 12th.
And your family's is in Montclair?
My family, my aunt is in Cranford, and then my cousin lives in Rahway. So I'm all in and around. I was just out there a month ago. We were at the People's Film Festival in Harlem about a month ago, and so I got to, stay with family and everything.
Yeah, so when I think also you from California, remember the movie, what was it, Colors? That long movie? Yeah, and so with the gangs and things like that. So you have in Rodney King and all of that.
Yeah.
So
well, you brought up higher learning, and I was watching that recently again, and the thought that was going through my mind is that could easily be made now. Unfortunately.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Jonathan, we can't hear you.
I said even more so than then, right? Like it's more relevant now than it was then.
Yeah.
And I know. So you said July 12th.
Wednesday, July 12th in Montclair at the UU of Montclair on Church Street. We're going to open the doors at 6:30. I'm actually going to talk to them and see if I can open them at 6:15 because I feel like I'm going to get more people than I expected. And then I will actually post, I will send you, Donna, because I believe we're on that group chat. I will send you out the picture and link to the to get tickets right now, and I'm going to open it up as soon as I get off.
Yeah. And Matthew, how long are you here?
Well, I mean,
How long you here?
The 3 days, 11th through the 13th.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Because the Unitarian Church, they're also affiliated with a church in Orange, and they probably would have opened your
Oh,
doors. But
And
okay.
well,
and
I
definitely
can-
want to thank both of you for this, for coming out and for the film, and look forward for the 12th. Tia, you already asked the question.
Yes, we did.
All right, cool. So we're getting ready to go to
All
our
right.
next segment.
All right.
Thank
and
you,
then,
Enjoy
Joel.
dinner, Matthew.
Thank you
Safe
Thank
so
you.
much.
Have a
travels.
good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Hey, thank you.
reimaginingsafetymovie.com is the website.
Say that one more time.
Reimaginingsafetymovie.com.
Yeah, we have it.
And
Yeah.
we have links to the event. So yeah, thank you all very much.
I know. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. All right, and so that is the next segment of All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. So, Zaid, you can introduce this next segment, and thank you, Dennis Boatwright II, for coming out and being on our show. And Zaid, can you introduce the next segment?
Well, there is a elder Arab scholar of sorts who is
You said of
attacking classical ancient African civilization with a particular focus on a docudrama that is now on Netflix concerning the life of Cleopatra. And it's coming from that. Black studies has been under attack from the right wing in this country. So here's a fresh attack from some Arab racism that is as dishonest and disingenuous about its own racist legacy as is white folks here in the United States. We raise hell around the racist legacy of this country and the transatlantic slavery, but we need not forget the trans-Saharan slave trade and that particular experience that creates an anti-Black sentiment that can be as violent as any others towards Black folks coming from Arabs. One of the worst expressions of that most recently was the United States government toppling the Pan-African leadership of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, literally turning it into a failed state where Black racism went buck wild on Black folks in Libya and turned that country on its head when putting our folks squarely at the bottom. So the whole notion, because I know I'm introducing it in that way because some folks say, well, what's the big deal about, this film and some old Arab guy talking some mess? It has a context. It has a context that plays out in racist violence in places where it has a capacity to do that. So racism has to be condemned whenever it shows its ugly racist head in order to prevent racist sentiment to turn into violent racist behavior, right? This young brother, Dennis Boatwright II, Imhotep Ahmos, I'm gonna let him introduce himself. The young scholar based in Detroit and been going all over the country, right? Tailing this dude. His name is Zahi Hawass, who's is putting out this mess on this film. Now, I just watched the first segment of this, and it's very much in between the lines for the most part. And I'm like, what is the big deal? Why is this dude going off like that? But if you check out, the background and the baggage that comes from that kind of racism, you'll understand it.
Hold on. One thing I just want to clarify, and I guess one thing I want to clarify, and I guess this will be clarified. Dennis Boatwright, you've been following this dude around the country. He came in here, and you're following.
That's why I used to work campaign.
Well,
you campaign. So tell me what's going on.
We've been on his head wherever he arrives at. Where he turned up at. He was on the 23 center city U.S. tour. So we tried to make our presence known, to let him know that you just can't come on our territory and push us around and misrepresent our history.
So Dennis, I gave a big picture kind of background. Let's break down just who this dude is, what this dude is trying to do, and what's the noise he's making, and why this campaign that you're doing is so important.
Well, Baba Zaid Muhammad, I just want to thank you for allowing me to get on this show. This is the type of show that I like being on because listening to you kind of remind me of the late Dr. Ronald Walters, one of my favorite, political scientists. So I just want to thank you for allowing me to be on there. But Zahi Hawass is the former director of Egyptian antiquities in Egypt, and now he's pretty much the propaganda spokesperson of the Egyptian government. And what he has been doing is he has been doing the same thing that other people has been doing, and that is he wants to control the narrative of people of African descent in regards to their history. So he has been out trying to pretty much erase people of African descent from their own history. And he is somewhat successful because if you look at his websites, you will see that Dr. Hawass, although we consider him a clown, he has been actually somewhat influential. He has taken presidents on personal tours to Kemet. He has taken people like Will Smith, Angelina Jolie over there as their personal tour guide. So he has been very successful at what he's doing. And pretty much we have to take people like him serious because, as the late Dr. Amos Wilson said, that if we allow anybody to control the narrative of our history, we de facto begin to re-enslave ourselves, because one of the linchpins of slavery is controlling the people's their self-concept. And what Hawass is trying to say is that there's no way on this earth people of African descent could have built the civilization of Kemet, especially the pyramids, because pretty much Black people are not able to achieve that. So this is pretty much what he is promoting, and we have to oppose him. We have to oppose him, and that's what the Center for Pan-African Studies have been doing. But later on in the show, I would like to pretty much explain how I got catapulted into pretty much shadowing Zahi Hawass as he did his tour in the United States.
Well, go ahead, jump right on in.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Baba, you hit a lot of points. You brought up the Arab Spring, and this is a part of pretty much the Arabs of the Maghreb, of Northern Africa, really are trying to get their clout back, because what you have is their reputation as a people was really almost it was really diminished significantly by United States, as you had mentioned, the killing of Muammar Gaddafi, many other dictators, and whether it's Morocco, Tunisia, they were overthrown. So Zahi Hawass is trying to, on behalf of the Egyptian government, is trying to build up their credibility again. And what he sees people of African descent, particularly African Americans, as vulnerable. So he want to score some points off of us. That's why he has pretty much been targeting African Americans. But get straight to the point. We would say back in March, I got a call at my office that I'm in now, the Center for Pan-African Studies in Detroit, from some scholars and activists who were complaining about they had went to Kemet, Egypt, to a One Africa conference. And when they were there, they kind of felt that they weren't welcome there. Certain things like air conditioning, room services were not available. And then they got a general feeling that things were being sabotaged. And one person had told me, who was actually there with the scholars, he had said that there were Egyptian security officials on the elevators with them, kind of following them around. And it got to a point where they really start worrying about their lives. So they left and they decided to have a conference here in Detroit last year. But the point is this. The person told me, and this is one of the tragedies of this all, they said that they don't know who could they turn to, because most of the Black community, when they brought this issue up, nobody wanted to touch it. Nobody really wanted to touch this issue about how Egypt is mistreating our scholars. So they asked me, what can I do? So I had wrote an article that somewhat went viral. People have been spreading it, sharing it, to different platforms. And this is how I got to where I'm at now, because people were saying nobody wanted to deal with this issue because they got vested interests over to Egypt, whether they got tour guides or whether they making money going over to what have you. So the people turned to me, and I represent Dr. John Henry Clark's spirit. I really believe I do, and him and Ronald Walter. So I had to speak the truth, whether it's against the Egyptian government or whoever it is. And this is where I'm at. This is how I got to the point where I'm at now.
So this guy is who is he talking? Who is he? He's on a tour. What is it? What kind of tour is this guy? I saw something where he got taken off of his post in Egypt. Is this some kind of opportunism thing for him personally also to try and reclaim some kind of stature within that field?
Yes, because he has actually been arrested and in charge with a lot of misdeeds. When he was the director of classical antiquities in Egypt, he was arrested, and he's trying to resurrect his career. But his timing, you have to look at his timing. See, it's not just Hawass. Hawass is joining a generalized anti-Black movement that is not just started. Well, Hawass is trying to make Egypt honorary white supremacists. When I say this, we have Hawass is a Middle Eastern version of a Ron DeSantis who is out here attacking Black studies. And he is doing the exact same thing. But he see that, Baba Zahi, he see that we're a vulnerable people. He see that we don't have the leadership of a Malcolm X here. We don't have Dr. John Henry Clark. He knows that Dr. Francis Cress Wilson is not here. He know our best, like Dr. Ben is not here. So as a scholar told me over there in London the other day, he was like, Dennis, Hawass is very smart. He know that when you launch this opposition towards him, you're not going to have as many people as you should be, because he know the best of our people are not here no more. So this is very calculating. And he see that we're right now are at our most vulnerable time. As we see yesterday, we see that the Supreme Court overturning and affirmative action. So we see a concerted rollback of the gains that our ancestors and our scholars have achieved. We're seeing them being diminished because we don't have that classical thinking like a Dr. James Turner. We don't have a Sheikh Anta Diop here, and Hawass knows that, and this is what is motivating him.
So let's look at the madness of his racist argument, right? I mean, there is some real truth and facts that we do know that our scholars have developed. What are the important dimensions of the Africanity of classical African civilization? Egypt is in Africa, no matter how these fools try and slice it, and and so it has been, and so it will be. So I know you may want to lift up some important highlights for those of us who do not have that operational or functional understanding of the depth of our ancestral past at that particular level in that particular space. Share some of that out.
Oh, yes. What we're seeing is a replay of the 1990s, when we have a lady by the name of Mary Lefowitz, who had wrote a book, Not Out of Africa. And the book was published and it was gained currency amongst our people. But Dr. John Henry Clark found it necessary to refute those claims of her. Even though we had books by Chancellor Williams, Destruction of Black Civilization, books by J.A. Rogers, Sheikh Anta Diop's UNESCO presentation. We had all that, but Dr. Clark, while he was blind, he found it necessary to come defend the integrity of our history. But getting to your question is this: we have archaeological findings to show through figurines what color, who were the people who built classical Egyptian society. We even have self-depiction, even by a person, by a European, a Greek historian by the name Herodotus. One of their best people who they heralded, they used to put on a pedestal. He said that this is from his own observation. He said that the people of ancient Kemet were dark-skinned, woolly hair, tall, slender, and they had a love for music and dance. Now, I don't know who else would fit some type of description of that. And we have DNA analysis that was proven at UNESCO, whereas the farther you go back in time, the darker the people get. So there's overwhelming evidence to support the fact that the original people who found the founders of ancient Kemet were people, Brother Baba Zaid, that look like you and I.
Now, what do you say about the act? Now, the basis of his attack is this film on Netflix, Queen Cleopatra, right? And that's like I said, it's a docudrama where they're reenacting the drama of Cleopatra as they know her, right? And splicing it with scholastic commentary, and the scholars are of different backgrounds, right? But they're not spewing the stuff that this guy is spewing. And one of the things that Dr. Clark always said about Cleopatra, that it's even coming through this very limited lens through a Netflix piece, is that Cleopatra, representing the last of the golden age of ancient Egypt, was in the end a strategic but a very devoted nationalist, right? And so it made sense for the makers of this film to they made a light skin, right? And there's always this mystery around who her mother was, right? But people with the background and the characteristics and features that you just described, and wanting to be a heroine for those people, the likelihood of her looking like Elizabeth Taylor is kind of skinny.
One thing about racism, it kind of blinds your logic. It blinds your logic. And here you is. See, it's not just Hawass. There's many people. Hawass would rather, if it was up to him, he would say they were Chinese people instead of black. Anybody but black.
Right.
Anybody but black.
On ancient Egypt.
Anything with black, because if they accept that they were black, then there's a problem here. We got to deal with them illegally occupied Kemet. Those are black people's land. That question is going to come up. Then the questions of reparations, of how you enslaved people and you stole all the gold and the ivory and the marble off of the pyramids. You tried to blow them up, and many times calling them paganism and all of these things. So there's too much at stake for them to be honest. It's too much at stake for them to be honest. In particular, because if they were honest, and if black people, see, here's the thing. If people of African descent knew who they are, they will hold their head up higher and they will be more confident as the people. And I have to say, before I became an African-centered Pan-Africanist, I wasn't as passionate as I am now about defending our people. And I learned this from people like Marcus Garvey. People like Marcus Garvey, Dr. Clark's, his teachers, Arthur Schomburg. These are the people that got me like that. So this is a problem to them if they allow us to realize who we are. Because I tell a lot of students, I say, you know what? If you really know who you were, you start realizing these other people are overrated. You giving them too much props. So they got to keep your identity, they got to marginalize it as much as possible. And if you notice, well, Zahi Hawass, he forced to say, okay, you were there with Taharqa, in the 25th dynasty, but you was only there for a couple of years. So of all our accomplishment, he marginalized it. He marginalized it because he is a part See, white supremacy is really not based just on skin color, even though we know the Arabs are a part of them. But the point is this: white supremacy, white nationalism, as Dr. Ronald Walters like to call it, is a thought pattern. It's a way of thinking, and Hawass is a part of that, and he is trying to rebuild the damaged reputation that occurred during the Arab Spring. He's trying to, so he got to find somebody to pick on. He's trying to get his average up. And who did he pick? People of African descent. He picked us because guess what? There's not too many Zahi Muhammads here. It ain't too many of us. Unfortunately, we're trying to build up, but it's not too many. All politics are local stations or shows. So as a scholar told me, good friend of mine, he told me that Hawass is very calculated, and he came on this 23 city tour at the same time, whereas Governor Ron DeSantis is demolishing Black studies, as your friend Bashir Muhammad Battah talks about. Bashir brings that up. He's coming at a time, and they're getting us on all angles. Now we have the Supreme Court ruling. But the issue is, how are we going to respond to this? We're under attack. Some people, I hate to say, Baba, that's what you're a very courageous person, because people, it's humorous, but it's sad. People been treating me like a hot potato because they got to make some money in Egypt. And I told them this. I said, you know what? Just what you think Dr. Clark would have said if he was asked about Zahi Hawass or Sheikh Anta Diop? What do you think he would have? Do you think he would have said, I don't want to touch this because I can't go to Kemet for the 50th time? He wouldn't have said nothing like that. We would have been behind Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben if they were alive with us. They would have been spearheading this, and I wouldn't have a reason to even be talking about, Egyptology.
Hey, Zaid, we have Enoch Hankerson and Arkem for this section.
Oh, I didn't know they were coming on. Okay.
They're for this segment?
We got a few minutes left. If they want to come in and make some comments, we need to come on now.
All right. Oh, their device is not connected. So they're back here, but they're not back here. I just saw them. I thought they might have been connected.
I wasn't aware of that. Okay.
Okay. No, you were saying.
Enoch, I think, if that's
Arkem is in Zing. I know who that is.
Okay. But they're not actually fully back here.
Okay.
I tried to put them up, but they're not connected.
Well, go ahead, Dennis. Finish your point. We're sorry. Yeah,
I was just saying that I just admired your courage to even be talking about this, because many people have been treating this like a hot potato. They don't want to deal with Hawass because they're afraid that their tourism connection or business may falter or what have you. So that's one of the sad things about it. But I tell people this, the whole world is looking how we respond to Zahi Hawass. They wondering how we're going to respond, because what you have is Hawass, who is coming. He's not coming to the suburbs. He coming to Detroit. He came to Chicago. He came to LA, the heart. He came to New York.
Yeah.
He coming to the heart of Black people.
And at the Javits Center. And I love that long Mathew banner that y'all made, right? Putting him on blast. And I wish I could show the picture. I can't, but I'll definitely share it back out. Now, let's break this down for a minute. 23 city tour. Who is hosting him? Who is he talking to when he's on this tour?
Well, believe it or not, it's mostly affluent white people and some Middle Eastern, and you maybe have probably maybe 1% are Black people. And he has been pretty successful. But what we have noticed that we go there and we hand out fact sheets, which contains, research by Sheikh Anta Diop, Charles Finch, Dr. Clark. And believe it or not, the white people, who are a majority of the people who come in there, they were very receptive of this, of our literature. and we found out that nobody ripped the literature up and threw it on the ground. And it was so successful in each city that Hawass, if you go on his webpage, he wrote some articles about us, about the literature we pass it out. So we were successful in passing out literature as the sympathizers of Hawass, and they're taking it in there. They're taking it to the event, and they are asking him questions, doing Q&A based upon the questions that we asked, which is when did Egypt not become part of Africa? When did that happen? Among other things. And Hawass, he felt us, but it was unfortunate. We didn't get as many people as we wanted because we kind of like got caught off guard in April, right around the time, when Kevin Hart was banned from coming to Egypt because he said that the people, he was telling a group of children that we were kings and queens in Africa, and that just that statement alone got him banned from coming to Egypt, amongst other things. So I don't know if I'm gonna close out for now, but just a point I just wanted to bring up is that we have to deal with. I have written the African Union explaining how people of African descent have been harassed when they go to Egypt. I have sent letters personally on the behalf of the Center for Pan-African Studies. I have sent letters to the Congressional Black Caucus, and I also sent letters to UNESCO alarming them, bringing to their attention what Hawass is doing, is not Hawass, but the Egyptian government. Mm-hmm. What they're doing, where they're disallowing us to bring out facts that was presented under UNESCO and unanimously accepted. So we have to get on this because they don't let us come to Egypt. They don't let us come to Egypt if we say that they were Black. It's obvious now, based upon them prohibiting people, as I said, Kevin Hart and other scholars, pretty much revoking visa. So how is the people, why we're going to let him ice skate through our own communities unscathed? We have to say something, but we have to do it collectively, because if we concede our history, which is our collective memory, as Dr. Clark said, we might as well hand in, our card of humanity, our card as a people. So we have to defend these, and not just this, but we got to accept the example, the model for our younger people who are going to come after us, so they can see how we dealt with Hawass. Because, every 30 or 40 years or so, just like it's been 30 years since Dr. Clark defeated Mary Lefowitz. Another 20 or 30 years, you're going to have Zahi Hawass Jr.'s coming to the United States, and that generation is going to have to be prepared for them. Otherwise, we risk really enslaving ourselves and starting all over.
Well, you're in Boston. Tell us what's happening in Boston on this front.
Well, right now I'm not actually in Boston, but what we did was our committee, which is Sister Nzinga, who's listening in. I think she's behind the show, who's been instrumental. We have sent some literature for people, the local people of Boston, to pass out, and as well as to inform the community, especially the Black community, like in Jamaica Plains and Dorchester, to pretty much raise the alarm bells about what Hawass is doing, and they've been very receptive. So we didn't really have to go there. We're thinking about bigger things now, and how we can, network with people like yourself. So whenever we have this crisis again, we will be already prepared.
Good. I just put in the chat the link to my Babala, who's based in Boston, Professor Tony Menelik Vandermeer at UMass Boston, who himself is under attack at Boston, right?
Boston University?
Huh?
Would you say Boston University?
Yeah, UMass Boston.
Oh, okay.
UMass Boston. He's been there for years, and their Africana Studies program is under attack. But he's a warrior scholar. He's somebody good to know up that way. So I just wanted to appreciate that. Tell us now, just as we wind up, the Center for Pan-African Studies. You created the Center for Pan-African Studies. Tell us what that is and how you roll it.
The Center for Pan-African Study is a think tank that's based in Detroit, Michigan, but our focus is on international relations, foreign policy, grand strategy, and the political manifestation of Pan-Africanism. I started that because I noticed that people of African descent didn't really have a serious think tank on the scale of like the Brookings Institution, the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, the American Enterprise Institute, et cetera, that we see in Boston. So I wanted to start something to kind of like fill the void, because we know Trans-Africa Forum has been pretty much on decline. So I wanted to bring some new energy and a new perspective, but I also wanted a Pan-African, a think tank that credibly represents the views of Dr. Ronald Walters, the views of Dr. John Henry Clark. So those what really motivated me to start the Center for Pan-African Studies. And lastly, we're really organizing, we're planning to have a uniting the base for an African Renaissance conference. We're trying to get some type of conference similar to the 1972 National Black Political Convention that happened in Gary, Indiana, but unfortunately it kind of blew up at the end. So we're trying to replicate that, but this time we want a success story. So this is some of the things the Center for Pan-African Studies do. We're a serious Pan-African institute. We don't discriminate against people. We really love all people, regardless of their ideology. As long as you care about Black people and you're willing to help, further the interests of people of African descent, you all are welcome. And you can contact us. And you can go to the website, the Center for Pan-African-Studies.org, and that once you're on there, it will show you how you can contact us directly.
This year marks the centennial of the great Sheikh Anta Diop. Well, I'm hearing things loosely about how his centennial is going to be observed. It's in December marks the centennial, his 100th anniversary. What are you hearing about how his centennial anniversary is going to be observed?
Well, I'm hearing little things here and there, but I would like to say I hope it's success. I actually was thinking about going to the Congo and visiting the Sheikh Anta Diop Theophile Benga Center there, because I tell people this, that we like to go to Kemet, but Africa, there's other countries in Africa that's
got 12 million square miles to choose from.
Baba Zahi, you hit it on the nose. That's why, like Dr. Clark had said, we get caught up in Egyptomania, and I'm not trying to marginalize that, but we got Zimbabwe, we got people, we got Uganda, we got Niger, we got Chad, we got Senegal. We have all of these marvelous places that we can visit, but the place in particular, when we're talking about Sheikh Anta Diop, we should start making pilgrimage to the Congo so that we can see that pretty much exclusive university that they got there, the Sheikh Anta Diop Theophile Benga Center. And I can imagine that they are having some festivities or celebrations about Sheikh Anta Diop, the 100th anniversary, the 100th anniversary of his birth. That's a good point. A few people that actually brought that up, the importance of this. But the Hawass situation should make us insinuate the importance of Sheikh Anta Diop. And because, you look at Zahi Hawass, he mentions Sheikh Anta Diop. Sheikh Anta Diop is on Dr. Zahi Hawass' mind a lot. And you see it in all of his articles. So I am looking forward to it. I would like for you to share some of your information in regards to any celebrations that you know about the 100th year centennial of Sheikh Anta Diop birthday.
To your prior point, I want you to know that there is some of us are working on a anniversary conference to look back and to look forward from the 72 Gary, right? And there's certainly a place for this question to be taken up when the process now trying to secure the venue, right? And if that happens, there's definitely a place for this conversation in that space, because that's definitely going to be an all Black Pan African space, right? As we try and establish or reestablish a pivotal agenda at this very pivotal moment. Here we are at the crossroads of how this crazy ass country is going. So, little brother, I want to say, I appreciate you. Right, you represent a new wave. Right, we know Dr. Clark isn't here, Dr. Ben isn't here, and Sheikh isn't here, but you are, right. And I would dare say, as your elder, there's not a doubt in my mind that they are proud of the stand that you are making in defense of the tradition that they have turned into black gold, right? Just telling the truth. And Diop's work is, I mean, he went into everything, the biochemistry, DNA, I mean, he really took it to the ultimate stage. Or as Malcolm said in one of his last messages, when you really put the truth on the table, there's no room for argument.
Right.
So I appreciate you. As we go out, we have a ritual question that we ask everybody on the show. I have our co-founding producer just jumped in, so we get ready to go to our next segment. Jonathan, why don't you ask Dennis the ritual question?
When you're following this dude around and tell him he needs to tell the truth and stop the lying and stop the anti-blackness and stop the hatred of his indigenous Black Africans. Who are you listening to in terms of hip hop? Who's your favorite hip hop artist, individual or group?
I would have to say Eric B. and Rakim.
Okay.
Eric B. and Rakim, or lastly, Dead Prez. The rappers Dead Prez. I listen Public Enemy, all of them. I listen to all of them. But Eric B. and Rakim, I can listen to them on every occasion.
All right. Well, thank you. We definitely appreciate you coming on and appreciate the work you do out in Detroit and around the world. In what you do. What you do is important in terms of, like, a lot of those people are not here, and we always need people to pick up that mantle. So thank you.
Right.
Thank you for coming on. We definitely need to have you back on as well.
Ashe.
Oh.
All right.
Good
Take care. Peace.
Good second. Loaded show.
All right. Now we didn't. I think we're gonna have to do the that other the segment, right? Like, we're doing the tribute, but I do believe we have Kaz on.
And Cass is now the chair of the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition. Most folks may not realize that, because they see our old guard, staunch in their brain. But Cass is actually the chair of the Newark Anti-Violence Coalition at this time. Dawn was supposed to come on. We're supposed to have a few folks come on, so hopefully they'll get on in the few minutes that we have.
Right. So, Kaz, are you there?
Good evening. I am here.
So we took a big L in human terms when we lost Tasha. You on behalf of the mighty Newark Anti-Violence Coalition, what say you about your comrade and his sister?
I'm honestly not prepared to unpack. I'm still extremely at lost, literally. She was not only like my fellow comrade, she was my friend and a big sister to me. And she was loved by so many. And she was definitely a legacy for that community. She was a staple in Newark. You couldn't tell her anything about Newark, Jersey, nor our mayor. She was boots on the ground. I'm just having a real hard time right now. And I haven't been able to really process this sudden tragedy. It's just a huge loss and a void, and no one will ever replace her shoes. I'm just really so in shock. I'm not sleeping well. Hypersensitive, really emotional. I feel a little bit slighted, and I'm angry. We got so much stuff happening around us, and we pour so much into our community, and the ones that we feel most need us, but then it's the ones that who are the closest to us that need us too. And I just feel like the ball was dropped, in terms of like checking on your strong friends and those loved ones. You don't know what people are going through because they appear strong and they are leaders, and sometimes leaders don't want to express when they are vulnerable and there's things happening with them. I just wish that we would have known what was going on to be there for her. And I personally would have loved to be able to know, so I could have put all of the other stuff that was happening to the side, and just love up on my sister. And I don't really know what to say.
You said a lot. You said a lot. You said a lot, and what you said was important. Let me just start. Just take a beat, take a breath, and let me just remind everybody that tomorrow the services are going to be at Zion Hill Baptist Church on Osborne Terrace.
Well, next Friday, right?
Huh?
Next Friday, not tomorrow,
Right.
right?
I'm saying tomorrow. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Right. Right. Next Friday, Zion Baptist Church. From 10 to 12 is the viewing. The funeral itself will be at 12 noon, and the repast will be afterwards. Will be held afterwards at the Trek Center, 55 Ludlow Street. And folks are being asked to wear yellow or white. And I don't know where that came from, but I can say this as being one of your spiritual elders, that white is a very powerful color for Obatala, the Orisha Obatala, right, who represents the spirituality and sincerity and integrity, right? And yellow represents Oshun, and Oshun is the powerful Orisha of the divine feminine, about accountability, about protecting our children, and about healing. So whoever's idea was to wear white and yellow, the ancestors are talking to them. I'm glad they're listening. Natasha,
that was her favorite color.
Sister, and we love her dearly. We miss her dearly. I agree with what you said a lot. I mean, it was just that's. I think so many of us are overwhelmed with the not knowing. A lot of us are really that just compounds our grief. And it has us all questioning ourselves in terms of just how we're rolling. What did we miss? How did we miss? What are we not doing right? What are we not doing better for all the good that we are trying to do, right? So I appreciate what you said. Now take a minute, just think this about our sister, right? And you're in a new role, right? As the chair for the NAVC, right? How has Tasha, as you knew her, helped you in your work?
She was instrumental, especially with the transition. She was very supportive, and she always carried a non-judgmental stance, and she led with love. She knew that I was coming in trying to fill some big shoes that have been there and placed there for so many years. And although I cannot replace anyone, I can just come in and do my due diligence and try to bring the organization to an inflection point in terms of like just professionalizing work that needed to be done, so it could take us to the next level. And she was always a constant air of support, and she never sweat the small stuff. She just wanted to be a source of love and light. And you know, in any organization, there's internal conflicts sometimes, and folks agree to disagree, and that stuff showed up, but we always ended out with love. And she made sure that she was intentional about reminding me that she loved me through it all, and it helped keep me grounded, and it also um, it also was teaching me how to show up and with love and light, and she was a great role model in that, and if she loved you, she loved you. And she didn't miss a minute of not telling you. And she knew that I was overwhelmed. She knew that I was holding some heavy pieces, um, but she was always there. And I just feel like I wish I could have been there for her too. Just, you know what I mean? And I know that I have, me and Tasha, um, we bonded through trauma. It was a trauma bond Tasha had, was when she was the mayor's senior aide a couple years ago. She facilitated uh, the women's meeting, and it was a very intimate gathering, and at the old location where the source of knowledge was held. And it was really like, we told our story, we spoke our truth, and I spoke about my trauma and where it stemmed from and what led me to this work. And afterwards, she reached out to me and was like, "You're going to be my sis for life. Your story is my story." And then from there, it was kind of like we just bonded. It was something that it was spiritual. It was on another level, and she was showing me just how to be kind to myself in all of this work, how to just be patient with myself. This isn't hard work, it's hard work. This work comes from the heart, and it's heavy work, but she helped me stay grounded, and she was doing that. I can go to her about anything. And yeah, it's just, yeah, she was my person.
Hard work. That's great language to describe this work and what we do. And I want to just lift up the coming, I mean, when I was talking about the colors, I mentioned Oshun and healing and whatnot, and how you described that first women's meeting, uh, i.e., relative to Mayor Baraka also having men's meeting. Men's meetings don't have that, right? It has always been the feminine principle. There's always been the energy and the stature and the nurturing of the black woman that has held our community together and has been the vehicle or the vessel by which any of us who actually understand the importance of healing, that's the vessel that we ride, right? So I
Yeah.
salute you both for embodying that in the creation of that important space that is so important to all of the spaces that we have tried to create since the glory days of the NAVC. And folks listening for the first time don't know what the Mighty Newark Anti-Violence Coalition is and was back from uh, July 2009 for 155 straight weeks. over the scourge of gun violence in our city, we shut down city streets wherever its ugly head emerged. And we didn't give a damn who we inconvenienced because we said we were not going to allow that to become the new normal in our town. And every stakeholder that should be involved in trying to address that condition needs to stop running away from it or dancing around it and needs to come to it, or we would shut them down too. Natasha was at the heart and soul of all of that.
Sister
All of,
Cass.
and she has been a consistent presence in that work, and we love and miss her dearly. Sandra, I want to thank you.
Sister Cass, I just
Hold the
wanted
line.
to,
Go ahead, Donna. You want to say? Go ahead, Donna. I'm
yeah.
sorry.
Sister Cass, thank you for sharing that piece of her favorite color was yellow. Um, in the summer months, when we are more likely to ornament our nails, our hands and feet and things like that, yellow is one of the colors I love to see on us, on our pretty brown women. I just think yellow is a color that just pops off of us. And I mean, I can't, when I think of it in such a poetic way. I think yellow is so beautiful on our skin. And if you can remember, the scene in the color purple, when they were in the field, and I think they had on purple, and and they had on like a very thin, well, maybe something, a sundress or something would be made out, and it would flow, and it was flowing in the wind. I hope to see when people come that they know that, and they show up in yellow. And it's a very common color for me as well. So you did put it in the instructions. And then other thing, I always remember my pastor because I've always had a heart. And I think I heard that you said that you guys bonded around trauma. And I remember when Keisha did that first at Central, that first workshop around trauma. And my pastor at one time had cautioned me that, Donna, you have a spirit for people. And when people are going through things, and from a spiritual sense, that how spirits and things like that move and things. So just stay prayed up. Your heart is heavy now, but just think of every beautiful thing and the beautiful memories, her voice. I don't know if you have pictures. I don't know if one of the things my mom, when she left me, I have a recording of a voice. Of, how we have voicemails. And I keep that recording to hear her voice and things like that. So, um, that's one they can't take away. You can't. She's gone in the physical, but the memories will be forever. So, however, we can continue to have her live in what we know that she brought to us. Let's continue to do that. And thank you for sharing with us.
Excellent.
Cash, you still there?
Yeah, she is.
You still there, Sister Cass?
I think she's.
Yes, I'm still here.
Yeah.
And then the final question is the hip hop question, and I know I keep a song in my heart, for different times and for different things. Um, and is there a song in your heart that is helping you through this period?
Uh, yeah. I want to say maybe Tupac, "Dear Mama."
Hmm. Hmm.
Wow. Wow.
Mm.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, we will keep
Yes,
you.
yes,
We
we
will keep
know.
you prayed up, and know that when, and at different times when you feel those moments of strength and things like that, know that we're thinking of you and praying for you and her family as well.
Yes, please keep her daughter, her one and only child, Sapphire, lift her up, in prayer, and ask God to just continue to give her strength. She lived her life for Sapphire, and I know she is so pleased
For
to
how
wear how her Sapphire has grown up to be such an amazing young woman, and she accomplished so much before Tasha transitioned. And I know that if one thing she knows, she can be at peace to know that she raised a strong black
young black woman.
prideful woman. Yeah.
Right on point.
Oh,
Right on.
all these beautiful colors, yellow and sapphire. Let me keep that up. Well, I don't know if you heard coming in, Rhino. We asked the question, and for Cass, the song that she's keeping on as she goes through these days. And Rhino was the one that I know that brought it to our attention. Please, about Natasha. But the song that Cass is keeping on is "Dear Mama" by Tupac.
Cass, we love you, daughter. All right.
Thank you, Baba Zaid. I love you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you. Long live Tasha. Rest in peace, my sister.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Peace, family.
All right.
Yeah, we'll
we can't hear you, Rhino. Can't hear you.
We'll definitely have to do a longer version of this with more people, because I know this is very soon, right? Like, and people are real fresh on this. And the big theme is that, a lot of people who give care to others, we got to check in on them. We got to know what's going on.
Oh my gosh, that we Keisha, I remember that first one on trauma and how serious it is, and we have to check in on one another. And I think this year we've had Mr. Barbie on twice, and one of the things he left with us on both times is be intentional. Don't do the flyby, how you doing, and keep it going. If you're gonna ask the question, stop and listen. And be ready for the answer, and stop and listen, and know. And maybe that's something we need to do. How do you, if you're, because sometimes maybe somebody gets a feeling that something's not, but then we like don't want to get in people's business. But when do you know when to get in people's business? You know what I'm saying?
Right. But I know we're going to come back to that. And we're probably going to come back to that often. But speaking of intentional, doing a segue, I know DJ Ryan. Well, first, Marcus Weaves, welcome.
I didn't know we was having Marcus come on
right.
back.
Always
love. I had that on blast.
And always like the interplay between him and DJ Rhino as well. Two very knowledgeable people. For our audience who doesn't know, Marcus Weave wrote one of the best books I've ever read on hip hop, Somebody Scream. And if you don't know about the book, haven't read it, love hip hop, you need to read it. It was also featured on PBS documentary on Chuck D's documentary on hip hop on that 50th anniversary. So we're always honored, always happy.
Also wrote a book called Bron Shields, but
well, I can't. Can you say that out
loud? I say it out loud. Yeah, I wrote a book called Bron Shields.
Wow. Rhino, why do you got a movie theater marquee on your shirt? Is that what that is?
That's Newark.
Yeah, that's the Newark.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Where I'm from.
Yeah. Okay. It looks like the movie theater. How they had.
Let me tell you where that comes from, right?
Y'all can hear me, right?
Yes.
We hear you, right?
Mm-hmm.
My last steak and take experience was a Muslim thing, right? Was next to the old Paramount Theater, right? The Paramount Theater had a marquee that looked just like that, right? And since the Paramount kind of went away in the early 80s, and around that time there was these Newark Brick City T-shirts was coming out on the street. That's when that picked up.
Yeah, it's funny, in the movie Halle Berry just did that was filmed in Newark. That's the theater that they filmed in front of that area.
Okay.
And I was like, I knew that was Newark. I knew it.
It's a popular landmark, even though it's not there anymore. It's a popular landmark.
It was very popular back then.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, DJ, let's get into what you want to talk about. You said the first thing. Speaking of intentional words, talk to us about Busta and what he said, the acceptance speech.
Well, first, how many people raise your hand? Who was in tears with Busta?
Oh, most definitely.
Yeah, yes.
I was definitely in tears with Busta.
Yeah.
Right along with him. Yeah, because I honestly, and I have to be
happened.
honest, I didn't see the whole BET Awards. I only saw, I wasn't able to. I was doing other, and honestly, I didn't even know about
Right.
it until later down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw, I did get to see Busta's, the tribute to Busta, some of the tribute to Busta Rhymes, and I also saw his acceptance speech. And yeah, it brought me to tears because I mean, any of us, like like myself, man, who grew up during that time, it's like we were there. You know what I'm saying? We saw it. We were there. We were there when Busta Rhymes and Leaders of the New School first came out. You know what I'm saying? We were there riding with them for their first 2 albums. You know what I'm saying? We remember when Charlie Brown was really the standout artist in the group. You know what I'm saying? And then Busta kind of started to overshine him because he just had the voice. He had the voice, he had the delivery.
The whole charisma, yeah.
Yeah, and then we were also there when we saw, it was like some friction between Charlie Brown and Busta Rhymes. You know what I'm saying? And
Is that what he referred to?
we're referring to Leaders of the New School. Charlie
Okay,
Brown,
that's what he was saying. Okay.
from Leaders of the New School and Busta Rhymes. Like I said, Charlie Brown was really the standout guy when they first came out. But Busta Rhymes kind of overshadowed him, and I think that brought some some friction and some tension within the group, with Busta Rhymes getting all of the shine, getting all of the spotlight, and supposedly, allegedly, he got kicked out of the group, out of Leaders of the New School, and he was on his own doing his own thing. And as he said in his acceptance speech, he ended up becoming a master of the feature. He was a master of the feature, doing the feature. You know what I'm saying? He was on everybody's record. You know what I'm saying? Adding his verse, throwing what they call a hot 16, throwing his verses on everybody's remix or whatever it was. He was always a hot feature. You know what I'm saying? You wanted Busta Rhymes to be on your record. You know what I mean? And that was just his energy for the longest, man, all throughout his career. That was what he was known and what he was strong for, was his features, just his existence, man. Busta has a real big presence. You know what I'm saying? When you hear him, when you see him, you feel him. You know what I mean? And so everybody was attracted to that. So that's why Busta was such a big deal. And yeah, man, when he went up there and he said he wanted to cry, I felt it, man. I cried with him. Because we, like I said, we watched him grow. We seen all the things he's been through in his career. I remember when things were changing in the industry, and it was one of those things where the OG artists like Busta Rhymes or anybody that came out around his time, he came out like late 80s, early 90s. Anybody that came out around this time, it got to a point where it was like, all right, are they washed up? Are they still relevant? After you've been here 10 years, it's like, all right, you washed up. 10 years has passed, you done. You know what I mean? And I remember Busta going through a struggle of whether he was still relevant or not. I remember LL going through that same struggle. You know what I'm saying? A lot of artists, the OG artists, go through that. As far as whether they're still relevant or not. You know what I'm saying? Whether they can still put hits out and still mean something to the public. You know what I mean? So I remember those struggles that Busta went through. You know what I mean? He went through a lot of different struggles, man. But yeah, it was just real touching, man. And then he gave love to Spliff Star, who's been with him since the beginning. You know what I mean? Had to, it was just real touching and real deep, man. It was good to see, big man get his love, man, and get his just due.
Do you remember when John Kerry ran for president and Mayor Barack, I believe, was he councilman, where he did Rap the Vote, and they had the concert down, is that what's the park across Military Park from Robert Tree and Busta, Wyclef Bust, they were the closing act, but it was a rock, and people had came in, they had it was a rap to vote. Then they did it at Essex County College. People came in as far as Europe, and Bustin' them got on that stage, and they just tore it up. It was thrown together, and it was getting people to come out and vote. And this was when John Kerry was running for president.
Busta's energy is always crazy, man.
And he had the whole Everybody was with him.
Yeah.
So Marcus, what has been your experience with Busta Rhymes or leaders of the new school? You got any good stories?
Well, I mean, besides being a fan and seeing, PTA and just being blown away by him, I have a personal story because when I was writing for The Source, I did a cover story when Busta released the album. What was the album? Put your hands where my eyes can see.
Yes.
That was When Disaster Strikes.
Right. When he came out with that, I did a cover story on him, and in interviewing him, I went with him and his crew to England. And basically I'm supposed to spend like 2 or 3 days with him, but ended up spending a week just interviewing him and following him around. I think he did it was basically a promotional tour, and I remember seeing him we went to Brixton when they had, I forgot the festival, the big annual festival they have in Brixton back then, where he performed, and he pretty much tore the house down.
Yeah.
I had the energy was crazy, and he had the crowd so hyped. Like, I've never experienced the Beatles, I've never experienced the Rolling Stones, I've never experienced a rock star being chased down the street and into the crowd. But I experienced him being chased down the street. Like, the crowd literally came around us, and we had to run to get away. Wow. And the funny stories of my little selfishness, when they opened the door to the limo or whatever, it was the van or something, when they were supposed to push him in, I slid my behind right in front to get out of the crowd and got in fast. And I think they started cracking on me after that. It was like, what the hell you getting in first for? He's supposed to get in. That was it. And then, that was pretty much covering him. That was my first cover story for The Source. I was a huge fan of the album and very proud to have been there at the moment where he was about to take his biggest moment as a solo artist. Like, he was about to explode in hip hop and in pop music, period.
Right.
Just to be able to cover that and also put him in the context, because Busta Rhymes, he's a great style rhymer. He has a great voice, and his whole presence is what brought him to the forefront.
Right.
But in writing his cover, it was great to put him in a historical context, because his style didn't just start in a vacuum. His style was first kind of put out there by Grandmaster Caz from the Cold Crush Brothers. If you listen to Caz, the voices are similar, the energy is similar, the rhythmic play on words is similar. And so to be able to talk to Caz about sort of influencing Busta and, pretty much putting that into context for our generation to understand, it was pretty, it was an honor for myself. So
most definitely.
So the and that seemed like it might have been a fun week, man. I know.
It was a fun week.
I know there are a lot of stories that you're not telling, right? Like, and you shouldn't, right? You shouldn't tell all of them.
Yeah.
Well, you might tell one. You might.
But how do you
off the air?
Okay.
How do you feel about, and so there was a strike going on, a Writers Guild strike, and that led for the opportunity for more performances. So how did you like the show without any any talking or anything? You just had straight performances.
What show? You talking about the BET Award?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I didn't see it. You saw it?
Say it again.
No, go ahead.
I was asking Marcus if he saw the whole thing, because I didn't see it.
I didn't see it, but heard about it via social media. So I went online and I saw the Busta speech. I saw the Ice Spice performance. I saw the Uzi Vert performance. And I saw, what's her name? I'm sorry, the singer, Patti LaBelle. I saw the Patti LaBelle,
yeah,
and her technical flub and all that stuff.
I can't read the words.
Yeah, can't read the words. My thing about the shows going on without writers in the midst of the strike, it's really, I haven't really noticed a change. It's whether it's BET Awards or whether it's The View or a lot of shows where the people just kind of talk and they've kind of opted to write their own
Mhm.
Our dialogue, actually, it's been just as exciting
Mhm.
with or without the writers. I hope I don't want to get in trouble with the guild, but
I like watch what you say.
Gotta have a united
no,
front.
but I'm saying. But in the instance of
There's
saying
enough talent to carry that, though. Your point is well taken, though. Yeah.
But in the when it comes to shows like the BET Awards or heavily performance shows, it doesn't hurt it because what we're there for mainly is the performance.
Right.
So,
And,
and they don't require writers.
and I have to, and going back to Buster, Buster was like, yo, y'all messing up the bag. Stop with all that petty, stop with all that petty stuff. You know,
Yeah, because it
and I
doesn't make
think,
sense. It doesn't make
right,
sense to get rich and famous, and then you still doing street stuff, and you going to jail for street stuff, or you beefing with people on a street level. You know what I'm saying? If you're going to beef with somebody, keep it rap or keep it hip hop or whatever, and do it do it on record or
right,
do a battle or something. But it doesn't make sense to take anything to a street level when that's what you've been trying to escape all your life. It's trying to
right,
get from
yeah.
that so that you can live better and do better in your life. You know what I'm saying?
And,
I'm
you,
sorry.
and
I was
go
gonna
ahead,
say.
Marcus.
Oh no, I was
Yeah.
gonna say what Rhino just said is lead me to the point. I think we talked about earlier about the article in Billboard about the decline in rap sales, or it hasn't been number one on the chart. A lot of that dialogue again is around the Billboard article, and in the article it gave several reasons as to why it's not number one. One being a lot of the stars aren't putting out there, having a large output. But one of the reasons that really struck me, I'm not laughing because I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm laughing at how crazy it is. One of the reasons what they gave was because a lot of rappers have died because of gun violence. We've lost them also because of drug addiction. Was it drug addiction? And just basically drugs and violence. And that's another thing that I know Buster talked to the new generation about, which is kind of crazy because how do you begin to lose? How does a genre lose out on its place in pop music status or history because people are dying because of gun violence and drugs?
Yeah.
It's a little. I would say, well, I'll kick the conversation off. I think that it's a reflection of today, but I think it's also a matter of the chickens coming home to roost for hip hop.
I had an opportunity to watch the Wu-Tang, the movie about Wu-Tang, and all of that. I was so fascinated with RZA. Oh my gosh, I don't know, anything about them, but I'm like, how true to the character was. How good did they portray his character? Because it was just like, whoa, he was, and how he like associated everything to chess, like he was always calculating in his thoughts and everything. But the inner turmoil that they had, and they were friends, family, and everything, but they had, at the point that they were number one, they were just, it been in the background. It was chaotic. It was bananas, and it was, costing them, as Buster put it, it was really hurting the bag.
Don, I think in terms of the Wu-Tang Clan, I think your best bet is to watch the documentary base it on the documentary as opposed to the TV show.
Yeah, you got to watch of Mics and Men.
Yeah,
that's basically where they got a lot of that stuff for the series. They got it from Mics and Men, and they just kind of filled in the gaps.
And when they asked Method Man about how true was it, he said, well, it's as true as what he could come up with, because when you're doing a TV show, especially a dramatization of someone's story, it's a lot of creative license. You're really there,
right?
First and foremost, to tell a story that's going to keep eyes glued on the screen. So a lot of the mundane details of a life are not going to be told in a dramatization, but you're going to take like certain aspects of the life of people, and you're going to either exaggerate them or kind of play with them a little bit. So.
Yeah, and I remember Erica being
The writers, right?
yeah, I remember Erica being interviewed about it, and she was very she was glad that she was a part of that project because it helped her learn so much. Yeah, it makes you want to go back and do some research, and that's one of the things I wanted to see if I can go back and find an interview because Method Man has come full circle, and I would like to see if there were any interviews on how he felt about how he was portrayed.
But on the subject of what you were talking about in terms of like you're like chickens coming home to roost, in terms of hip hop and like violence and it affecting this generation. Could either of you go deeper on that? And with also a question of, is the younger generation, is it because they've been dying, or is it just because they're not any good? Like, I'm asking, right? Like, is it?
Well, I mean,
Rhino.
My take on it, honestly. First, I got to say this about when we talk about Billboard and stuff, we got to be careful about other people's agendas. You know what I'm saying? We got to be careful about other people's agendas and what it is that they're trying to portray and what kind of narrative they're trying to carry out. Billboard has always been shaky and shady to me. For years, it's always been shady when it comes down to hip hop. You know what I'm saying? We can't just go off of what Billboard says. If Billboard says something's not charting, I would say it's not charting because it probably isn't good. A lot of this stuff really isn't good nowadays. You know what I'm saying? But I know a lot of things that come off of this whole talk about things not charting on Billboard. There's been a lot of talk about, is hip hop dying and all of that. Hip hop's not going anywhere. Rap music is in trouble, but the culture of hip hop is still live and kicking. You know what I'm saying? Rap music right now is in trouble. Rap music is in serious trouble right now.
B-boy is okay.
85, they talk about hip hop is dying. Hip hop ain't gonna last. 50 years later, look at it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Get some of B-boy.
Let's be clear. Billboard is white mainstream stuff. Racism, capitalism come together. They saw hip hop coming as competition.
Thank you. So why would we be listening to what Billboard got to say about whether we charting or not? We ain't really supposed to be listening to Billboard anyway. You know what I'm saying? Do what you do. I mean, our favorite artists really never really made it like that on the Billboard charts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They were always the hottest ones to us. They're the highest charting ones in our charts. We always talk about top 5, top 10, top 20. They're the highest ones in our charts, but they have never like charted number 1 in Billboard or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So that's not something we got to worry about. You know what I'm saying? We need to pay attention to what kind of narrative they're trying to carry out when it comes down to our culture, because they're talking about
Jonathan, you talking to us?
No,
he's not. Okay, I'm sorry.
But they're talking about hip hop being dead. Hip hop is live and well. Rap music is in serious trouble right now, and we need to keep the fight because it's one of the elements in our culture of hip hop, and we need to keep fighting for what's ours. And rap music is ours, and we need to fight for it and not just give it up and be like, "Oh, it's over."
I was going to throw the piggyback off
this. When you say hip hop is over, when hip hop is dead, you talking about your peers, you talking about your kids, you talking about. I mean, there's no separation from the black struggle and the struggle of hip hop, because it's all tied together. You know what I'm saying? It's all ours.
Oh no, but then let me
movement. So it's all tied together. So we got to watch the words we use when we're talking about what's ours.
Okay, well let me clarify. Billboard said that they just wasn't charting.
Yeah.
And to piggyback off of what you were saying, you're absolutely right, because hip hop has always had an ebb and a flow. If you look at, let's go back to when Scream was coming out, the sales of rap were kind of in a slight decline. And then you had Drake, and then you had this new wave of artists to come out and kind of revive it. When right before 50 Cent did the battle, the Rolling Stone cover battle with Kanye West, the sales of hip hop music had declined a little bit, and that didn't single-handedly bring it back, but it really boosted the profile of hip hop at that time. So you're absolutely right. You can't count the music out because people haven't put out any output just yet. You don't know what the situation is.
Right.
And also, if you want to know what's going to happen next, I quote the writer Greg Tate, may he rest in peace, who said, if you want to know what's going to happen next in hip hop, get thee to a nursery. That's how you'll figure it out. The next kid is going to come along and they're going to do their thing, and it'll just blow up.
Yeah.
But in terms of the violence and the what I was talking about, when they made the point about the drugs and the violence, and I was talking about the chickens coming home to roost.
Yeah.
It was just to me, it was a buildup of the overwhelming narrative in rap in terms of violence and drugs and even just overall just gangsterdom, which is no problem.
And I agree with you on that, because and that's where I say, that could be the reason why you're not seeing things on the charts, because people are tired of that. What's funny is that recently I've been hearing young people of that generation, of today's like drill music generation. I hear a lot of them saying that they don't like it. They're not feeling this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that goes on in what we're saying is culture. There's a lot of stuff that's going on that a lot of these kids aren't feeling.
Exactly. And they're not involved in.
Right.
And I also think that there's an element where people aren't streaming on the platforms that Billboard is actually is measuring, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and that's the thing I was going to say. I think
we have people on SoundCloud. We have a lot of independent artists, people coming out. Like people, there are so many different streams where people get hip hop from right now.
Right.
I don't know if we know where the next thing's going on. Like,
it could be coming out of the woodworks, man. You never know. You know what I'm saying? And it's not going to be coming. It's not going to be in the same places where it was when we were coming. It's not going to be on
it's very
mainstream radio. You're not
because
going to
also those
video shows barely exist. You're not going to see it in Billboard or these award shows unless it's our award shows. You're not going to know about it.
And I'm going to hit you with one more thing. The communities no longer exist. They're different communities, right? Like a lot of those places in New York have been gentrified, right? Like,
nah, that's a real deal. We're laughing. That's a real thing you're saying. Let me say
Bronx.
This is something I was thinking about too. To that point, all right, you guys saw the Fight the Power thing, right? With that Chuck D put together.
Yes.
Remember we were talking about how the political climate is what the pretty much molded the hip hop in those times, right? And so we got to think about this whole Trump era, this whole narcissist, twisted mental illness that we're living in these times. This is what's being reflected and what's coming out in the music. It's the same thing. You know what I mean? It's the same thing. If there's garbage in the music, then that means that there's garbage in our society. There's garbage in our politics. There's garbage going on, and we got to take care of it. And hip hop has always been the reflection of what's been going on around us. Right. So if we don't like the hip hop, then that means we got other things. Well, like they say, it's bigger than hip hop. It's bigger than hip hop.
I was going to say though, but it's in this crazy a time, and I'm finding it's not just in hip hop, but in pop music across the board.
Across the board, man.
As crazy and as chaotic as times are, this is really supposed to be the most ripe time for political messages, for creativity, for melding them all together into sort of a beautiful expression of the pain that's supposed to be going on. That is
going on, but the corporations are not letting it.
That's the point. But that's my point. Is that, and hold it, but at the same time, these artists, these a lot of these hip hop artists on these streams, these SoundCloud, I don't know if that's still going on. They're supposed to be independent. They're supposed to be able to say, what they wanted to say, just like we did it back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's really kind of putting that out there. No one's really kind of, I don't know, expressing it in a
There's artists out there. You got to look for it though. That's the thing. It's more of a struggle to find that kind of music because there used to be a time where we could just turn on the radio and you would hear it.
I know you can't.
But we don't have that now. So you got to really look, just like you said earlier, like the internet, man. You got to really dig deep now to find that stuff because there are people expressing it very deeply in their music and in their artwork.
But I really
got to look for it.
And also, I'm sorry, on Rhino's point, our relationship to music as Americans is not the same as it was 30 years ago.
Right.
So
and the other thing, and
radio and TV, and now it's all internet and phone.
Yes.
You know?
Another thing, a couple things. I wanted to shout out my cousin. She was in shot right in West Orange last week and seeing KRS-One. But going back to the show, I was looking, of course, when Big Daddy Kane came out, and I was like, yeah, got up, and I watched it late on when they showed the clips, and I watched it real late. But Big Daddy Kane, old school is still, bringing people off the floor, and I was doing this thing, and he did his little 2-step. I like, do the split, but he didn't do the split. But the old school was, really getting the thing. And the West Coast, I like how they did that. And I was like, where was Snoop? And then they did a highlight of red carpet later. Snoop out on the red carpet promoting his cereal. So Snoop is like doing diversifying. And as I sent you the notes, my cousin was on the new ship Carnival the other week, and Shaq has a restaurant, on Carnival ship. So, the older crowd, and Buster spoke to the older crowd that if we want the younger artists to represent us, we have to look like something they want to respect and listen to.
I said that to somebody earlier today, man. We got to show and prove. It's about show and prove. And I know Marcus, I think one of the last times you were on, we were talking about, the nation of the gods and earths and whatnot. That was one of their things, man. Show and prove. You know what I'm saying? We living in a time now of show and tell, but we gotta teach them how to show and prove because a lot of people just want what they want without having to work for it.
But I was going to say. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we got 3 minutes left. I know we're wrapping it up, but you were saying, Marcus?
No, I was going to say with
6 minutes, right?
To piggyback off of Rhino, yeah, we want to be able to show and prove, but it's like there's been a huge divide between how we can impact on this generation. You know what I mean? It's hard to put it in the word. Basically, let's go back to when they were stomping on records and steamrolling over Snoop Dogg records.
Right.
They were trying to tell us, wake up. Don't go this route. But what ended up happening? We ended up going that route anyway because of corporations, money.
Even harder.
We went even harder. And that's why that's why the chickens are coming home to roost. That's a whole other discussion right there. Because we're dealing with the aftermath of the popularization of violence, drug dealing, drug taking, the whole nine. And I'm not trying to sit here as a church or as a religious figure or somebody trying to say we have to clean it up, but there has to be a respect of the community from our artists at a basic level that has been lost over the last 30 years. And we always you hear stuff like, we don't want to hear that black knowledge stuff. We don't want to hear that blah, blah, blah anymore. Mm-hmm. That was a thing. And now we're coming around because things are effed up.
Right.
But, we have to keep, as a community, we got to keep that in our minds that, we got to have fun, put out great music, but we got to watch the messages we're putting out to people on a constant basis.
So we got to do a part 2 of this where we talk about how we do that, how we switch it up. And
I'll also have local artists on as well. Because there's some local artists.
Accountability and responsibility.
And I'm going to bring on some local artists who are young, who are, they're trying to make their way, right? And I think that these conversations are good. And they're going to get even more fruitful because we used to run this argument and debate where if you want to get Black people together and unify them, you need to pass laws that are horrible. And so we're like, hey, pass a really messed up law that really directly insults Black people
Speaking
and
of which, I got
a little
somebody
more
coming
uniform.
on next week for affirmative action.
Right. So, and I'm going to try to get some more people on as well for that conversation because, again, the politics and the hip hop combined. So we are out of time this week. We want to thank all of our guests for this Fifth Friday. We want to thank having Bruce Marks on, having the filmmakers on that
Mathew, Renee, and Bill Parrish.
right, and Mathew Solomon, Renee, Bill, Parrish, all of them. They're one of the Mathew Solomon's film on
Mr.
the
Boatwright.
of
Sorry.
of July. Thank
12.
you to Boatwright the second for coming on and the work he's doing with African civilizations and trying to tell the truth. Make sure tell the truth.
Y'all should look at that show too. It's called Queen Cleopatra's Netflix. It's in 4 parts.
Okay.
Give it a
Sponsored by Jada Pinkett. Like I think Jada Pinkett.
Yeah. I mean, like
right.
the way this guy just coming out of left field is like it's really.
It just seemed like hate. It just seemed like hate. Right.
Yeah.
And thank you.
White supremacy and Arab skin.
Exactly.
One thing I do want to say by the time we come back next week, we have passed the 4th of July. I always take a time out to read Frederick Douglass' speech.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July?
Yes,
more than any other day of the year, one which reveals to him the gross injustices and cruelties to which he is the constant victim.
I know you could. That's
July
good.
5th, 1852. Let's talk.
Yes.
So Donna.
That's it. Take a time to read it out. It's
All
good, Listen. You may listen and read, but it is really something
I
that
need
you
to
should
revive
digest.
So we'll see you next week. Marcus, we got to get you on our show more often to continue these conversations. Thank you for coming back on. Loved and got to hear that Buster story from the week in England. That seems like that you literally could write a short story that could become a movie just from that week, right?
Sure.
That's all these white writers of rock did their stories. You need to do your story of hip hop and just do a week in the life. Do a couple. Yeah, you need to publish that as well.
And Buster shout out to Buster. He was looking good. Buster said, "We looking good out here."
Right. So
and I learned something. So bust means bust, ASS. Did I learn that?
Okay.
That's why he kept saying that. That's what Buster called.
I don't know.
I think so.
He got it. Well, you talking about his name? He got his name.
He got his name.
Trying
to
go
off. I thought I was learning something. You're like, nah. Okay.
All right. So, thank you. I'm in Iowa right now. I'll still be in Iowa next week. Speech and debate. I just one last little thing. I love Buster getting his lifetime achievement award. Saying he wanted to cry. I felt very similar. Received a debate coach Hall of Fame award. Was out in Phoenix. For that, I have to share the speech with everybody at some point because that was a lot of fun. But you get all teary up. Thinking about 30 years, all the kids, all the battles, all the different stuff that went on. So it was kind of cool seeing them do that. But we'll see you next week. Okay. I'll still be in Iowa. and talk to everybody.
Be safe. Enjoy
the 4th of July weekend. Make it extra long weekend.
Don't lose your mind when going up with the red, white, and the blues.
Oh, it is Iowa.
And go out and register to vote.
Right. All right. Talk to you later.
And you don't stop.
Yes.